sense. I couldn't really figure out like where to put you into as well, like because I still think that thinking in teams, like there's like a very large section of people who are in the Polish team of Ricky or
Yeah, yeah.
and then there were people like who were more into Dominic's part, and that's basically how the server was split it for like at least 2012 until
Yeah, I
16.
remember that, yeah. I mean, you cannot remember Matt because it's pretty like a fresh character. I made it when the Abukir was launched, so it's
Oh,
kind of new.
nice. All right, so let's get started.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, just tell me, how do you feel?
I'm a little bit excited, to be honest.
Okay, good, good.
Because I don't know, it feels like I'm some kind of official person to give an interview, but I'm basically just like, yeah, it's a very casual thing, I think, like, but
Yeah,
I'm really happy that you actually do this because it helped me a lot to review the entire story and the entire path again a little bit myself and to find the right words for the right purpose, I think. And I hope that by this, the view on like how Medivir is admin actually is a little bit changed, because what I don't want is that the server is damaged. What I want is actually that people are realizing, well, whatever happened, like it happened, but it was not that like gloomy and suspicious as everyone thinks. It was like a couple of clear actions and a couple of stuff which was detected, and but it was not to the extent on like giving levels or whatever.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
very limited in that sense, and I want to explain that, and I want to save the server from any rumors which are shit.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's great. I guess we will get into all of this. Okay, so I guess we can start. And like for the beginning, of course, I will have to ask you about your simpler introduction, just your name, age, nationality, and of course, by what nick we did know you on Tibia nick.
Yeah, so I'm known to the community actually as Miles, but that's not my real name. My real name is Arvid, and I'm 28 years old. I'm from Germany, and I used to play Namos Chaos. Later, I renamed it, but it was really a pain in the ass to do that, to Miles McGregor. And yeah, these are the only two characters which I think like are really connected to me, except obviously for Doyle, but that's a different story.
Yeah, sure thing. Okay. Um, so your Tibia nick beginnings. Tell us, how did you find out about the game? How did you start?
Well, I actually started quickly after the beginning and launch of the server and after the very first wars, which were in like November 2011, I think. We moved as a group of people from another OT which died at that time and was close to TBNic as it was called back then. And yeah, that's basically so very very early. I think like in late 2011, like that's it.
All right. So when did you start? Like, did you know Iryont at this point, or did you get to know him later?
I didn't know Aaron at all at that point in time. I got to know him in, I think, in good question, 2012 maybe. And no, I didn't had any idea about any admins on the server, anything. I didn't had any idea of whoever was on the server. It was just like, hey, there's a new OT or an old OT or whatever. Let's move it to it because it's the only 7.4 one which was active at that point.
Okay, I see. So did you move? You said you moved in Tibetnik with some people. Were they those people that you created McGregors with?
Yeah, it was basically so before. So I'm originally started playing Tibia. Started playing Tibia on Eternier in 2003, and I stopped doing it in 2008, I think. And then I met five guys. I think we will come to that in a later phase of the interview as well. But it's a small team of five people, five Polish people who are totally unknown to the rest of the community, I can tell you. And with these people, I this is the core basically, and with these I moved to TBNic back, as it was called back then, in 2011.
All right. So let's just maybe talk about the McGregor's Guild, because I think actually in the previous interview I did with Aris, I spoke a lot about White Rose, and you are also connected to this one of the most, I think it's fair to say, famous guilds of Medivia, which was McGregors. Can you tell us, like, what was the idea behind the guild? Was it a war guild, RPG guild, or whatever guild would you describe it?
Yeah, first of all, I wrote that down so I don't forget to say that. I'm really happy that you refer McGregors as one of the most famous guilds in medieval history. That really puts a smile on my face. That's already the purpose. We can stop here. No, point taken. So when we started on TBNic, the server had like a population of 10 to 40 people online, and when these people were mostly downward spiral people, like, and others like the Polish guild, which existed already back then. Like maybe you remember Fearless, Mullen, Sayo, Heresy.
Yes, I do.
These people were basically online back then. And when I created the guild McGregors, I always did that on all OTs because the source was basically from Eternia. On Eternia we had McGregors and I was leading it, but I was a little bit too young to be the original founder because I was starting TBR when I was 13. And funny part, Doyle, the name Doyle McGregor, was basically the real founder of McGregors on Eternia, but he died like in 2004, and that's why I carried on the name. So I didn't found the thing, but I really was inspired by it, and then I basically founded the guilds on any OT we were on, and the core, the original core, which was I was talking about earlier, was like basically these 5 people. It was Wojtek, Pavel, Patrick, Mateusz, and me. And then we had in the early phase, and I'm going to talk unfortunately now like a little bit longer because I want to elaborate a little bit on this part. There was like some externals we had joining, like Raltok, and later a really important member to me was Elvis, aka Ramses, Drani, Tangio McGregor, Sancho McGregor. You might know him under these names. And what basically happened with McGregors is that you can cluster the guild and the guild evolvement in like 4 phases. The first phase is like a very early times phase. So the core, like we 5, started on Medivia basically just to make war. And I'm a war player, so I was a war player when I started that back then, and I was like, hi man, this is a nice server. There's only a few people online. You just like challenge the current existing high class players. Like, so what we did back then is, and yeah, I think we will talk about this later on as well. We bought a lot of characters. Like we bought characters from the Polish team named Rusher Insane and Hoppler, and we bought characters from Dominic back then, like called Shadow and Kulik Bugs Bunny and Koppler and whatsoever the names were. And in the end, we leveled them up a little bit, but then we were really quickly dragged into war. The Polish team was back then really aggressive against us, and because we were like next to Downward Spiral, the only guild who was like active, and we didn't make a fuss out of like we were claiming on the forum, like really making claims on like, yeah, we own no Senya, and if you move to Senya we will kill you and stuff like that. So we basically introduced like RPG-ish idea of getting taxes or whatever on a really small community. So that's really not the purpose you do on a small community level, but we wanted to challenge and we want to renegade. That was the idea. And a small story here. So the war basically, or the first war from McGregor, started when Wojtek was hunting on like I think a level 60 player, and I think Fearless came around and started to attack him, and he was Red Skull by that time. And yeah, he survived. Wojtek survived, and in the end we killed that Fearless guy, and he dropped bow, which was really rare item back then. And so we had a lot of fights going on, and I think the most thrashing part or like cool part on the early phase was our VDL defenses, Venor Dragon Lair defenses. We used to put like tons of noob shares on one spot at the bridge, and get on top with our mains. So whenever we couldn't get SD comboed and we couldn't get GFB comboed, and that was the idea behind it. So people would have to really risk like bans to get us killed, and that was like our way of like challenging the existing guilds. And there, I think at least one video is on YouTube. You can check it out. It's really funny how we are dying there, but it's a nice video of the early war on that phase basically. And the bad thing about this is that there were so few people online actually to get people to log in and try to hunt us. The only way was to kill random people and just like go somewhere, kill some level 40 guy, and then it will be communicated, and eventually some higher level guilds will log in and try to fight us. I really felt bad about like random PKing, and we stopped doing that pretty fast. But yeah, that was the start. The second phase was basically, in Germany you would say mehr Schein als Sein. It's basically referring to you act or you pretend to be something you're not. And so back then, everyone of the original core retired from the server because we were bashed by all existing guilds. Panzer Battalion, I mean, like, they were like 30, 40 levels higher than us. You can see that on the YouTube video as well. We're totally outnumbered, and that was the idea about the Renegade, right? But yeah. But later, then 6 months later down the road, in 2012, I got to know Valiants, and I got to know like people like Shaw, Loa Henderson, basically. I got to know him basically by him killing me on Thais Depot, and then we started talking. And I met Sander, I met Tony. I have no idea on which character Tony played back then. He changed so many characters, no idea. The Black Magic, Schalle, Fladdermannen, Bernardo, and Smokey. Other people who were important to me were like Tompa, Bullen, and what I want to point out, the really big four leaders on Medivir, which were ever on Medivir, in my opinion. And I count that the first one is Gustin, the leader of Valiants, was Titan or Deltarius. He was like really committed, and he was like a really good leader. He was like committed to the guild. He had a normal intelligence sense, and he had a good feeling for people and what they want and what they strive for. Second best leader, or not the second best, but one of the four big leaders is, in my opinion, Astrid. He's the most reliable person in terms of leadership who I know, and he's good in PvP, and he's just like a really honest person. And when he gives you his word, you know that it will be kept, and his team will follow, or did follow, say it that way. Then there's Heresy, obviously, from Downward Spiral. Really good leader, really good RPG person, just like a little bit peaceful, but like reliable. And then you had Dominic. I count them into the big four because he was the warhead who warred basically Astrid's guild, but that's like part of Medivia, and it will always be like these two people, or like fractions, always fought each other. And my idea, or I wanted to be basically part of these four. I wanted to be like that. McGregors is one of these big five guilds who are really playing a role into all of that. So I started to make war declarations along with Valiants against Panzer Battalion. I joined the battles like on single characters because there was no one active from the original McGregors guild. So there was no way of actually us helping at all. But I was still there. I was trying to make like a big fuss out of it. Then the picture my situation. I was like gone, but I'm RPG person, and I wanted to really like rebel, or whatever you want to call it. And the good part about this is basically I then got to know Elvis pretty early in 2012 by Hersey. Elvis, like Sancho McGregor later on, like is like was one of the core parts of McGregor's always, and will always be, in my opinion. He was the person who was there was a Hellgate story. The way I met him is basically I messaged him, hey, you're the guy who's like still fighting the Polish people, and he said yeah I'm doing, and he said like I'm just trying to kill some level whatever in Hellgate, and he was like under Ramses, I think like 54 mage at that time, and he was trying to kill like a 70 mage, and we were like making defend at Hellgate or like a trap. It didn't work out, but in the end we got to know each other by that, and it was really fun. And then we lost basically, or McGregors lost along with Valiance, the first war with Dominic's stupidness of the open battles. And what people don't know actually that Gusten and I paid 1 million, and I helped him to accumulate that money to Astrid to get everyone free, because yeah, that was the sense of it. And that's why Gusten is such a nice person, because he was always committed to the others, and he was willing to sacrifice more than others in order to help the others. And then there was even a second war with Valiance against the Polish team, if you remember, and that basically started in when some from the Polish team on a level 130 AK. I don't know. I think it was Pitos, and it was only 104 EK, and he killed me on Shadow and Thais. Like I was just standing there, and he just came around and killed me. I think I wrote something like, I think he wrote I sell character in trade, and I wrote like just like scammer. And he came around and killed me. And that was a time when we decided as Valiant, yeah, let's go and fight them again in the second war. So Schalle on Black Magic and Flademanen, I think, on KJ, like 2 level 130 mages. Back in that time, the most high level mages ever were chasing Pitos. And they didn't manage even to keep him soul fired. And at that point, I already knew we will lose this war so fucking hard. And we lost it again. And again, Gusten paid all for the others and paid everyone out, and that was like really important. Small story fun here. The most impressive person on Ventrilo I ever heard screaming was Schalle when he killed Matskill McCoy on Ankara Moon Boat. Like there was an open battle on Ankara Moon Boat, and he just UE'd out of the sun, and he died after, I think, even afterwards. But he was so happy that he killed Matskill McCoy. It was like, I killed Matskill McCoy, I killed him, and it was like he screamed in the middle of the battle, and was like so happy. It was really good to see that the highest level mage on the server killed one time a person. But yeah, anyway, so the purpose of the second phase was just to make a claim and get respect and like make a fuss out of something we were not be. And then the third phase of McGregors, and that's actually the phase I think where the actual picture of McGregors comes from, is that I stopped acting stupid on forums. I stopped being like really aggressive on forums, and we started to make like more a family picture out of it, and to establish RPG again to Medivia and to the gameplay in general, because I think Medivia lacked a lot on RPG players and lacks a lot on RPG players, and we had a tight selection, and then we had in the end a result of like a few people joining the guild who were really, in my opinion, at that point in time when I was leading it, at least, really committed, like Jokke, Towie, Marix, whoever they're called. Like, you know, William McGregor, obviously, like, really important person here to mention. And we were a really large guild, and one point maybe to point out is that we had I think the largest guild hunt ever on Medivia, with 500 backpacks SDs, going to demons for 15 hours, and that was really a good time. You know, we established like the core. I always, that is a call actually from Etania, once a McGregor, always a McGregor, and I try to live that with the family. And I think that's exactly what kept people like locking in and like contributing. And I wanted to have a guild that actually helps Medivia to grow and to basically establish a community that helps each other, where people care for each other and whatsoever, you know. And yeah, but then again, bad things happen. Got fell in love with a player called Mary. Mary stealing stuff from our guild house. Everyone is accusing Tompar, a really good friend of mine, and I believe then we exclude them from the guild, and that was the start of basically the fading. And then we were dragged into another war, this time not with Dominic against the Polish people, but with the Polish people against Dominic's team at Midsummer. I still remember, I think it was Alava who said, "Oh my god, I can't believe you're in our ventrilo," and blah blah blah. And it was like really fun, because at that point we were actually helpful, I think. But especially like Aeno and so Jokke and Elvis, they really tried hard to win that war. I think it was lost pretty hard. So McGregors, all they did for Medivia history was like losing 3 or 4 wars basically entirely, and then the fourth phase is basically, and that's the end of my monologue now, is like the fading out. So when I got CM, I retired from the gameplay entirely, and I think Genderet, so William McGregor, took over the leadership for a couple of months, but he retired due to his sickness. And Yoker then became the leader, and yeah, there was some mind change in his head, and then he deleted the guild. He didn't have the right to do that, but he did that. And I think in the end, when a guild is always as good as the leader, and Yoker is definitely not a born person to motivate and lead people. He's a good single player, and is good in following, but he's not good in leading himself, and that's not a blame, but in the end, that's the case, and I think that's why the entire projects of RPG guilds die with the good leaders, and that's what I'm saying. Like Astrid is gone, I think at least. Heresy mostly gone. Gusten is gone, and yeah, if if I take your comment on the in the beginning of this long monologue, like McGregors is one of the biggest guilds, then I'm gone as well. So I think all bigger RPG persons are gone from the leaderships, and I would really be happy to see once people again who are RPG-ish and guilds who are RPG-ish and like yeah living actually the gameplay and not like talking all the time about real stuff and what they do and trading shares and whatsoever. End of it.
Okay, well, that's great. That's very insightful. I'm happy you went into such a details. Um, I think I have some small follow-up question, because you mentioned before that when you started the war, you guys bought a lot of characters. You had those noob characters that I guess demanded multi-client usage from you. Um, how like I guess it was normal back then to trade characters, to use my noob characters. But I wanted to ask, what was the Iryont approach to it? Like, did he totally ignore the in-game stuff or the war players, or did he try to interfere, like, for example, to the trading of the characters?
Well, I mean, like you can't really put that into a relationship to nowadays because back then, as I said, we were like 30 players online on peaks.
Yeah,
Like this was just like for Aaron, sorry, it was more is a project or it was not the focus, and what happened in game did happen. It's I don't think that he was happy that actually people played, and to make a rule enforcement on such a low amount of people is totally a waste of time, because in the end, why would you regulate a player community of 30 people? That's totally senseless. And I think what the characters we bought, and I think they tried to report us on the rule violation stuff, and eventually I don't know if they succeeded in that, to be honest. I just remember that most we get to this point later on, but most of the MC shares were like from the Polish starting team, which I started with, because they farmed a lot of runes because they were selling them basically. So there was like I think the most shares I was ever on this VDL defense, because I'm not the yeah we get to this, but yeah we're like 10 shares or something plus the main share, so we were like just stagging all over it. And so I think when McGregor was like in the VDL defense on the second one, there were like 2 big ones, and the second one was like with a really lot of shares. We were 60 people online on peak, and like 30 people were only McGregor sub shares. So there was like there was definitely an abuse in here, but on a very early phase, and on a phase where you can't blame Aaron not to enforce rule set, because in the end, you don't regulate rules on such a small amount of servers, and no one actually cared because the revenue income doesn't justify it to put any work into it at that point in time.
so when you started, from the point you started to the point it came to mind to get you as a community manager, were there any others community managers helping Iryont in game?
No, there was basically no one. who was doing any kind of that job. So when I started, I think there was I don't think there was GM Mahone in Kamiya, and I think he was helpful, but he was very inactive, at least to my imagination. I mean, like, how active can you be when there's people like 40 people online a day? Like, you patrol once and that's it, you know. And even if you find CM MCs, you might say, well, better to have 40 people online than none. And yeah, so there was no community management before, and I don't think that there was community management after me. But this is no judgment of that, you know, because I have changed my mind here, and I'm nowadays a very different opinion towards when I started CM. But yeah, as I gladly got your questions before the interview, I know that we will get to that point.
Yeah, of course we will. So, to change the topic a bit, there was a rumor about you completing the Spike Sword Quest. Is it true or not?
Well, there's like a couple of stories which are not true actually about me, but this one is actually true, and I think yeah. So yeah, that's all I can say towards this.
Okay, but so if it's true, then I heard or I read on the forum back in the days that you had to use multi-client in order to activate some time tiles to progress in the quest. That is true or not as well?
Well, I don't think that the intention was to use multiply MC shares. It was just the intention eventually to work as a team, you know. But back in the day, as I referred, there was no team, and I have to say, with Nemos Chaos, I was a long time on Rookgaard until level like 15 or something. This is why Miles or Nalmos Chaos never had really a lot of HP on as a knight, even on the highest level he ever got. Uh, uh, but yeah, different story. So there was no other players. So, and I think the quest itself got reworked at some time. Because I figured out that the system, when people said like you can't do it the way you describe it to me, and I tried to do it, they were no longer callable in game the way I did it. And so you know that you could remove the spike sword right by the a simple system of like standing on several tiles in game on Rookgaard after in a short period of time, and that basically allowed the spike sword basically to disappear, and the fire fields to get like smaller instead of like the big fire fields around the sword. You might have seen that a couple of times because people were able to do that a couple of times even afterwards. But the point is that, so the way I basically did it then was to a lot of trial and error, and I had MC shares on like these positions, obviously, because I wanted to like not always run at that point and then like see did it vanish or not. So I just like had MC shares all over Rookgaard, and I basically I can't even tell you which tiles exactly were it, because I used 6 MC shares to do that, and so I removed the sword and I got back from the tiles again, and then what I did is just like uh standing again on all the tiles again, like, but like I just went on the tiles and then off the tiles and then just on the tiles again with all the shares, and then basically the sword was in the dead dragon, and that's it. I mean, like, it was pretty it wasn't that hard in my opinion, you know. I just think that it was reworked afterwards because that one was really easy.
Well, that's interesting, very interesting.
And the point is, uh, I actually can tell you that this the actual reward, and that's what I think of quests in general, you know, is like, don't aim on the reward, aim on the experience of like that you have while doing it. I had a lot of fun doing it. It was sometimes tedious, but I had a lot of fun doing it actually. And in the end, I can tell you that I never used the spike sword on Rookgaard because I'm a club fighter and I never used sword. So it was basically just in, in my backpack all the time. And there's no need to. A spike sword and Rook is not like the final weapon which helps you to solve all your problems. A warhammer would be.
Yeah, I guess it's more about the journey when it comes to spike sword, because it's not that
To any
that
quest,
much
you know.
stronger than let's say even katana that you can load from Rotworm or
Yeah,
whatever.
I know, but the point is, you don't think of like whatever quest you do, or that's my intention here. Like, sorry for
Yeah,
a little bit off the plan, but the journey, that's like a really stupid sentence. Actually, the journey is the aim. It's but for quests it's true. You know, like an item will not satisfy you if you do a quest or a task only for the item or for having the reward. Don't do it. Do it only if it is fun to get there, if it is fun to for you to explore, to try out stuff and all that kind of stuff. If you get headache from it, don't do it. If you just do it for the fame, don't do it. Like, do it only if the gaming, if that kind of gaming is up for you, and if this kind of gaming, questing and just trying out, and even if it doesn't work, fine. It's not wasted time if you enjoyed it, and that's the idea about it.
I find it kind of surprising that you have such a viewpoint on RPG part of the game, and also you were such a war player. Like it's how to say it, like not common mix of game styles, you know.
Yeah, I guess, you know, that might be true, but when it comes to war, I'm actually not a good war player in the war sense as well. Like, I'm not the one who's leading open battles, or I'm not. I can feel situations quite well when an open battle is just like about to be lost. I know that. I see it the minute before, because the way how people like move, or like you can see that, you know. But I'm not good. Whenever we as McGregors did like battles, we did like 3 hours, 4 hours planning, and there was like a really big plan behind everything. And I'm like more like planning stuff, getting stuff like prepared. That's the fun about it. The actual game fight is not that thrilling to me, in all honesty. And if you think of me as like an RPG player and a war player, I whenever I was hunting with Namos on polar bears, because I think like hunting that folder on polar bears is like a really fun part, you know. I mean, like, you're lonely and you could like throw a fire field there, and it will glow like in the night. It will give you some nice lightning, and with the new light effects of from Iryont, it will give you even a better lightning at all. And that's a nice thing, you know. Why always aiming on the top, or why always aiming on like being the best PvPer? You know, I'm not bad in playing a mage, but I know that there's so many other players who like really good in playing a mage, and so like I do it for the fun, and I that kind of hunting for the fun. And I think like most or some people unfortunately totally forget about the fun and only are really aggressive and they need to win, and they do try to win for all purposes, hack people in whatsoever. And that's not the way you should play.
So you said before that spike sword was sitting in your backpack mainly, but I wonder what happened to it after all.
I moved it to main.
Oh my- okay, that's I bet it's very disappointing for rook players. Well, it's interesting to hear.
I think I dropped it when I was first killed on Namos. And because on Namos I had like a really set uh equipment. I usually was running around with a shield, like her a steel shield, and I had a wooden how you call a wooden wand in my right hand. So like as I was like moving, and I had like all the stuff which I ever carried and was valuable to me in my backpack. So whenever I got killed from like higher levels in Astrid that killed me as well. I was please give me my backpack back. There's a lot of stuff which you don't need, but I need it, and they usually did even because I'm good at talking to people, and the population even when they killed me was like really low, so I could convince them to give me back my letters and my small books and all that kind of stuff, which is like or was valuable or is even to this day because I still have them valuable to me, and yeah, I think like people are totally like more into or people moved from the original feeling of hey I want to like just play as an RPG gaming style to a more I need to be the top, I need to have the best equipment, I always need to like they just I would wear a Tahian soldier outfit just like for the look because it looks cool, like the entire set in my opinion looks cool. And if you're already on it, there was on Spectrum. I've no, not on Spectrum. I think it was even on Legacy, but I don't know. I think Rose had on Spectrum or on Legacy this huge guild house, the White House, the red White Rose guild house in Komaya, no, on Idron, or
Yeah, it's Kormaya. It's still there.
Komaya. Yeah, you see, I'm forgettable in that sense. And I think I was like moving there, or not going there actually, but I had like a small character, level 11, Farmer Johnson. And Farmer Johnson, I just basically logged in because on Komaria there's a small farm, and even you can't grow corpses there. Actually, I was just like living in that house on that farm and just like putting my stuff there. And whenever people pass by, I said like something, and I just like was like busy like doing the farm work, And that's the game Medivia, the unique game Medivia offers so much more potential than just going for monsters, being there and people killing. It's more like you can have your fantasy like evolve, and you can do whatever you want to do in the game because it's a sandbox game. And if you want to be a farmer in Komarir and just play as if you were a farmer in Komarir, then you can do that. It's not that satisfying to do that because not many people understand you. And when I try to convince them that sorry, I can't read private messages because I'm not into telepathy, you have to come here to talk to me, they were a little bit irritated, but people actually did, and that was fun. And when people adapt and they try and they talk to you and they bring you like some apples or whatever, that's just interesting, and that's a really different way of connecting to people instead of like only going on the material, talking about real stuff and whatsoever, and not really like playing the game for in so many ways, but only seeing two ways of playing a game. Long story short.
Yeah, but so I wonder when we will get to that like in a very minute. But when you were approached by Iryont or what, however it was, but basically when you started the community manager position, did you feel kind of sad that you will have to give up the gameplay, or did you feel like you will be able still to play a normal character?
Well, we get to that indeed on a later phase, but no. Let's put it this way: there's it's a really long discussion. We're getting off track, but the I think that everything in life is decision based. You make decisions, and decisions have consequences. And if you agree to be like in an adminship of a game, similar to if you agree on like committing yourself to a girl or to a friendship, you're loyal to whatever you do, like the job or the girl or your friend. And in the end, this is a decision you make. And when you have, in my opinion, and that's the way I live, you stick to decisions and you live them. So for me, at that point in time, I stopped hunting polar bears, and that's really a bad part because I was still under the impression that one day, eventually, when I retire as CM, because I wanted to retire, I could build myself like a house in on Folder and have a custom house there for like a really small one, just for Namos Kairos to hunt polar bears, because that's really a nice thing to do. And eventually have like a lantern there.
That's a cool vision. So let's move to that part eventually. tell us, please, what was the beginning of you being community manager? Not even like being the role, but when it first occurred to your mind or to Iryont mind, who approached who first?
Well, so I did suggest it to Aaron, but you need to know the story behind it. I think I was spamming Aaron about like, hey, I have so many ideas for the server. Can I help you? Can I help you? And he was like, I think he was at some point really annoyed by me, and yeah, we got to know each other like whatever, and it evolved that I think in the beginning, you know, as I say, friendships are always based on trust. And when you are leading, or when you are hosting a game and you are approaching a player, you're naturally very, very protective and very, very restricted and whatsoever. And that was exactly the case. So there was like, or I was making suggestions and he was like evaluating, I think, whether what my intentions are, because he's not into the gameplay. He doesn't know that I hunt polar bears all the time, and that I reduced the polar bear population by far the most of ever. I don't even think that this is true after the polar bear task. Anyway, so the point is, I think that yeah, it took some time, but I was the one suggesting it to him. But this is actually after we had like the first initial custom events that were run on Medivia was like the Porgal raid. Eventually, you remember that. That was like a raid in Thais, where basically Porgal approached. He was first in near Po, and then he moved basically to the Thais Sorcery Guild house, and he was there, and he was like a really strong. He did great damage, but people survived it. But that was the first custom event, and that was like my idea, and I did make the monster, and that was just fun. And then we did like the second bigger event, which was Alva, the quest stuff, where Red Rose Shield and Blue Tome was found, and or basically these were the rewards.
But sorry to interrupt you, but these ideas. I mean, you say these were the events that were your ideas, but were you a community manager at that point, or it was
No, 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 no.
before?
I was
Okay,
just a regular player giving up my ideas and trying
okay, clear.
to, and that's we get to this, but I mean, like, this is the entire mentality I would expect from any player. You know, like, use your fucking head. If you see a problem, try to solve it. And if you see like if you want more events, or if you want whatsoever, try to convince people that this is a good idea, and try to not to stop, because the only one who can actually change the status quo is you, and not don't expect others to make the game better if, just because you pay them. Okay, and so these two events were like in my memory. I think maybe there was even a third one, don't know. But the Alavar one was really big. I mean, like, there was like items all over the world which you had to collect, and I think Aaron got that this was fun to the players, but it was really tedious to do. Like, I remember a quote from him, and he said, "Man, that took so long for them to do." And I said, like, yeah, of course it takes them long, because it takes them time to think about it and time to like realize, and then obviously it requires time for admins to be online and monitor this. And I think maybe this was one point where he realized that there's eventually a good option to increase the population. And then I what I did in addition, I don't know if this is actually, I'm not Aaron, you know, I don't know what he based his decision finally on. But I ran a couple of Facebook campaigns as well to grow the population. I spent like, I think, $300 on Facebook and 3 different campaigns. I tried to motivate people to donate to these in a PayPal account, to donate that we can run these Facebook stuff. And in the end, I think we had some players eventually from that. Hard to say, like the conversion in the end. There was a lot of clicks on Medivir, and that already helped, I think, eventually to create awareness of that game. And yeah, I even had a couple of presentations about Medivir on like startup scenes, because I'm really into this startup, small business, niche, underground gaming scene, and I really love the project Medivir, and I wanted it to grow, and I wanted it really hard to like be successful, and I was committed to it. And I think like one that what might be like one of the points why I was then like recalled from to be as a community manager. And so the main purpose was to evolve and grow the server's populations by events, custom entertaining that basically no other server could have, because I'm my head is really full of ideas, full of event ideas, full of any ideas, and I just give me the CM character and I do of nothing, because you have to create everything manually, like in the game simultaneously to the players being there. You need to call the monsters, everything. So it's not like you run a script, you do it yourself. It's like you need to be like really really fast in typing to actually call the monsters, because every monster needs to be spawned itself. Like, and when you imagine you make an orc raid at the which I had at the Black Knight Tower, that was really massive, because you had to like be really really flink in German, you would say, with your fingers. Anyway, uh, so yeah, and the point is that I don't know actually why, but at some point in time, basically on the 8th of July, 2013, Aaron approached me on Skype and said, "Do you still want to do that job?" And I said, like, "Of course." And that basically how then evolved. And yeah.
So, when you were introduced as a community manager, what were your initial tasks and responsibilities? It was just raids and increasing community, or also catching cheaters, or it wasn't like on the target back then?
Well, so there were like, I think, two main parts of the two main parts of my job. The first one was basically community managing, that includes like having regular events and raids, entertaining the people, but as well on the same time being like the super GM basically to ban obvious farms, which, how many people I banned in my entire career? I think it was more than 2,850 or something. It was like a totally sick number. I think I banned so many people in my entire career on Medivir who weren't banned in the like that was like really a ban period when I was active. Like, I was banning obvious farms, I was trying to enforce rules, and I was trying. That was as well my purpose, or my the task was to establish a fair gameplay to the community, to make it a fair game, and to establish as well the mentality of fair gaming. And the second part, which most people unfortunately totally underestimate, is that the entire update preparation and doing like was me. Like, we did the first update, for example, so Awakening of the Gods. That update was entirely done alone by me and Josh, who is now as well the main mapper, I think, of Medivir. And he did like, yes, he did like 70% of the maps. Like, we get to this later, but like the mapping itself is time consuming, but learning everything from scratch, like the way Medivir servers, for example, NPC scripts or lore, the entire lore behind it, the ideas behind it, the quests, like how will the quest look like, what do you need to do, the monster AI, like how will new monsters look like, how do you fit into a world where people are stick to tibia everything 7.4. They are totally stuck in their head. And my task was basically to approach these super old school players who are, after an experience, they're never going to achieve in their lives again, in my opinion, because they're chasing a past which existed in past, but they're chasing a nostalgic feeling which doesn't exist anymore. So you need to evolve, and yeah, all the books, all the quest log, everything. Like you have to somehow the items, the new items, like the drop rates, everything. It's like it's super intense, basically that part, and was like way more than the community managing part, I think, and that's often totally forgotten in that sense. But I think we get to updates in a second.
So
Yeah.
when you made a deal with Iryont, like about you being community manager, um, was it set like, okay, from this day you cannot play a character? What was the deal, like the technicalities of the deal?
Well, to be very fair, um I think the deal was I have, and that's one of the qualities I really value in friendships in general as well. It like to be loyal, 100% honest, and 200% committed to the project, and that's exactly what I was in that sense. I don't think that it was exactly don't play, because that's, you don't have to say don't play, because if you understand the job correct, you don't play. That's simple, and you don't have the time to play. I can tell you, you don't have the time to play. If you really take that job seriously, you don't. And yeah, and one condition was it was unpaid, 100% the unpaid, and I totally accepted that. I mean, like later on, we had like some agreement on house roses. Like we splitted them evenly, but the revenue was really low, as you can imagine, and after taxes even lower because it's an official company. So yeah, it's not. It was never about the money or what people might think about the power, whatever. It was more about like trying to make this project vivid, trying to make it bigger than it actually was, and trying to evolve, to do something people never did to this point in time with a 7.4 server back then these days, to evolve it, to make it better, to make it just like a real server with a unique gameplay, and that's the entire idea about it.
So if we can go back a bit to the guild times, what happened to the guild after you were introduced as CM? I know you touched upon this before, but if you could recall again, like who became the leader, and do you think like you becoming community manager basically finished the guild?
Yeah, definitely finished the guild, and finished it well. A couple of friendships I um some of the friendships I had, like friendships, okay, like in quotation marks, please, because friendships, you don't earn friendships, or you only earn friendships at the really hard level on the internet. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, yeah, it totally fell apart. I think William took over, as I mentioned, and then Jokke, but yeah, I left the guild for good. I wanted obviously it to survive, and I really wanted it badly to be like an active guild and like RPG-ish as it was before, and to live to the state, because McGregors are not like, well, a little bit like Panzerbataillon, or like the Polish guild, basically. Like once you're in there, you're a team member, and that's it. Like you're always respected, and you are like you're part of the family, and whatever you do, you're still part of the family. And whatever people did to me from the McGregors times, at least like to a certain point in time, I always said like, yeah, they were McGregors, and I just can't forgive them. But that's obviously a very stupid approach to solution when people backstab you or talk trash or whatever. But coming to an answer to your question, no, it didn't survive. It fell apart quite quickly, I think, and yeah, it even got worse. Basically, people turning against me for whatever reason.
So as a community manager, you got some rules set up upon you, like not being involved in any kind of in-game situations, conflicts, wars. Were there situations where you might step this boundary?
Yeah, I mean, like the it's a tough question because I mean, like I think we get into the details of my flawful behavior in detail, like in a second. But I can tell you that for my personal approach, I did a couple of mistakes. I definitely did, and I do regret them. But I will try to. We will go through each of these like really big mistakes, and I will try to like say a word about it. And when it comes, for example, for McGregors, I have to admit that I tried to, or that I wanted to favor them more than eventually other players, but not in the sense that people would think about it, you know? It's far from the scale that people would imagine me to be corrupt or something. So, for example, I did refill their manner. Like as a community manager, you had the power to like fill a little bit of manner, and I did that like, but I did that not like often, you know. I did that like 2 times maximum, like in the entire 2 years which I was active. And yes, of course, that's a corruptive behavior if you want it in that sense, but it's not like I'm giving them free items or something. The only person I ever gave like free items were people in Thais Depot. When I caught like a butter fishing, I threw like tons of fish in Thais the Depot to share it with them. And one time I did a mistake, and yeah, it was spoiled later on forum as well to give Yoke, because I really pitied Yoke. You know, like Yoke was a member of McGregors, and he was before in some other guild where he wasn't really happy, and he appeared as a person, or not appeared, he was a person that was really pitiful because he had some problems with parents. He was living alone, totally desperate. He didn't have a girlfriend. He was like totally lost in his life, in my opinion, you know. And I felt like I need to help him, like as a sounds stupid, you know, like, but I wanted to like really help that person. And then again, he felt in love with like every male person who pretended to be female on Medivia. Every actually, or at least I think so. And yeah, that married person, for example, that Brazilian guy, like he I knew it from the beginning that this person is not a girl, it's a guy. I knew it, but I allowed him to join the guild. I allowed Yoka to basically get him into it. So anyway, special situation. Yeah, I gave him one time. I bent the butter. He had under himself 2 backpacks of GFBs and a couple of blanks, and backpack of blanks actually, and like some HMMs. I pushed that in front of him at the Cardigan boat. That's what I did. But apart from these like really small stuff, there is not there's these other stuff which we will talk about, like the real the real changing points in, or where I did not really use my hat beforehand. But apart from that, I never favored any player in game. The only person I really favored in the entire game was my real brother when he played, but he didn't even got across level 30. So you know that I totally think that I didn't favor him by giving him free items. I just helped him like when he had to carry his loot or something, you know. But this is, I mean, like I was unpaid, so you know he's my brother, and I just wanted to help him because yeah, I obviously love my brother, so I can't be judged on that.
Okay, so you said that you gave some items and loaded the mana. I wonder, just a side question, what other abilities you had as a CM? Could you like create any item on wish?
No, a CM could not create any item on Wish. The CM could go anywhere, delete anything, ban anyone, refill mana, for example, make raids, like the regular stuff you would expect a CM to do. Because whenever I did events, I wanted to actually reward the people, but I didn't want to give items because, as I say, the reward is not the aim. It's the time you experience the adventure to get the reward. The reward itself it's stupid to ask after a task for a reward, because it's stupid. I don't think that there should even be task rewards. Anyway, the idea is here. I wanted to only, so the my I think the main stuff I ever gave, or the most often, or I don't know, the most occasional, I don't know how to say that, reward I gave was mana. I refilled mana of people fully when they succeeded an event as a big team, and that's what I did. And I didn't give out any items or something, or only in very, very special cases. And in these cases, I actually asked for permission in beforehand, because I didn't want to be like the guy, because I got very, very fast into that. Oh my god, Medivia is making events and you can easily get items for free. I didn't want to get into that mood, so I started only to give mana.
Yeah, actually was part of one of those events that the reward was the mana fill basically. But just let me. Oh yeah, I wanted to ask another side question, because as far as I remember, the task system was introduced when you were a community manager, right?
Yes.
So who did the design the rewards for the task? You or Iryont?
It was and as I already hinted, I think I would have chosen eventually, like, a different method. But what I agree on is that the game at that point needed really, really badly some kind of involvement, some kind of fun. And I think the task system from Iryont was a very good idea to respond to that in a fast manner and in a reasonable manner. And yeah, of course, people can complain about, like, oh my god, I only get a twin X for killing, I don't know how many behemoths you have to kill, obviously, because in the end, again, I never leveled a character, so I don't even know how to feel that. But point taken is that, yeah, I mean, like, the road is the aim and not the final revert, because you already got loot from the monsters you killed. So it's not like you would have to expect always, oh, I have to get loot or whatever. I don't think that this is a good mindset that you should have when you play a game in general.
So you said before that the map was designed by some other guy. I forgot the name. Josh, I guess.
Yes, lots.
Okay. Yeah. But what about the quest? Like you said, Awakening of the Gods. It's also the update when Forgula was introduced. So did the Forgula quest were designed by you?
So for Gula itself was, like most of the rest of the first update, like 75% mapped, especially the raw shape and like the tunnel system. Not so much detailed by Josh, and I did like the rest of the modifications. For example, I added tombs, I modified the lightning in the tombs, set the spawns, and so when you think of Forgula itself, my idea behind Forgula was like to basically have the Lightbringers and the awakening of the gods. Basically, the Forgula is basically the center of the awakening of the gods, and I spent like a lot of time basically designing that piece of map and piece of like quest, because there are a lot of books, or were a lot of books on like Forgula, which dealt about like necromantic stuff, and I wrote all of these books, right? I had to write them my own. And I back that time I was like, Forgula was like the really the bad thing. Like there are the undeads. The undeads are basically rising from there, and they will take over the mainlands. And it's like the awakening of the gods is basically, yeah, that was the core of my work on Medivir to have like the idea of gods rising again, and like obviously the god of the Ugrit, the god of bones, like sitting or reigning over Forgular and basically awakening there. Because when you read the Lightbringer books, or when you read them because they don't exist anymore on Forgular before, you will know that the Lightbringers came there and it was like a plain island. There was no undeads there. It became undead when the one brother of their Lightbringers basically had the seed of Sathroth in himself and basically turned mad and unleashed the evilness of that place intentionally, but unintentionally, because he wanted to go do good, but he did bad in the end. And that's basically the idea about that place, and to have all these monsters there. And finally, I have to admit, Fogula itself back then was pretty incomplete, because there was like one pig hole which didn't work. I realized that after the update. That was pretty pretty because you couldn't reach a part of the map. And on the other part, there was a part on Fogula, like the quest place where actually like in the north of the place with the doors, it didn't work properly, and it didn't. But this is again due to the fact that the first update was entirely done by someone, in this case me, who didn't have any experience prior to Medivir, and I was a little bit like alone on the field, and I didn't really had a test environment, and I didn't know how to test it, and I really had a long time learning, and I spent like a lot of time to learn actually, and try and error, and finding out how quests work, how I can make things work, what is possible and what is not possible in my scale of abilities, of as well programming abilities. And yeah, that was definitely one downer for me. I wanted to fix it, but yeah, I never got the chance to.
So on the previous version of Fergula that you created, were there any epic quests that weren't solved?
No, there was just I said that there was, and I in there was, but we get to this. I think there was a second update which was never released, the Clash of Races. I think not. I don't think. I know that there was a video, the teaser for Spectrum on YouTube, basically like showing as well parts of the maps, and for this part, like the Clash of the Races, I did like most of the mapping. I did all of the quests. It's like really a lot of time, and it was a finished update basically, which was not finished because because the yeah, things ended as they ended. But the idea here was that I finished all the parts on Fagula which were not finished yet, and I introduced like quests there which I wanted to introduce in the first place, but I didn't have time in the first update because we had a deadline which we missed. We had another deadline which we missed, and we just had to release. We had to release really badly, and that we were so much under pressure that like yeah, and that's a good learning. You know, you have to learn, and that was, I think, as well a good learning for everyone in the team, that things take time and you have to test stuff before you release it in a live version to players, because players find every flaw full of shit you can't even imagine to test.
How did you feel about the fact that Fergula got total rewamp?
Let me go to that question because it's sorry.
It's okay. I'm not even sure if it was like in the quest.
Yeah, it was a question. It was a
Okay.
question. I know that I actually responded to it.
I mean, it's okay. Maybe we will just go to it later, like in the order we have.
Wait, no, there it is. Ah, yeah.
Okay.
So if Fogula was your design, how would you feel about its total revamp? That's the question. I found it. So yeah, I think on the first hand, you have to understand that like game development, and I'm a game developer, is like an evolving field. Things evolve. For Gular itself, for example, was in my opinion one of the core things, but it was not really understood by the players the way I wanted them to understand it. And it was not really felt by them. And it wasn't in technical practice, it was even not that good as I wanted it to be, because it was like the really first part of the stuff which I really wanted to be good, but I didn't had the time to finish it. Anyways, things saying that obviously like as well with the work with Aaron together, like it was very always constructive, but we were not always on the same page. And I think like things need to evolve, things need to you need to in English you would say you need to walk before you can run, right? And that's exactly true for Fogular. So I wanted to run, but I wanted to take too fast steps. I wanted to create a custom thing which didn't really work out and wasn't really accepted by the players. And that's totally cool if you scale things differently, and if you change different aspects of the game, and then if you evolve that, that's the only way how you can grow and how you can basically get to a better game experience for the player. And that's all about it. I mean, like, if Formula needed to be revamped, I'm totally happy that they did it.
So, moving on a bit, once, as I remember, there was the event. I think it was Orc Raid, and I remember my friend got killed there, just in the Orc Raid. And as a story goes, as it was posted on forums, you gave him boots of haste to cheer him up. You can of course clarify if it's true or not in a moment, but also you organized a lot of events, some where you, as you mentioned, manually spawned monsters. Also, I remember you did sort of the lectures, like giving info about epic quests. Um, would you say you were too close to the community or like over the line as a community manager?
Okay, first of all, I think I need to point out that I'm not really sure about that I really gave him Bo, and I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have gave him Bo randomly. There might be a case that he died during the raid, and I looted his bow and I gave them it back.
Okay.
Might be the case, but I surely didn't just come up with bow because, as I said, I can't create items. Okay, I couldn't create items. So
So sorry, just sorry for interrupting, but I remember other like events where the reward was like you would throw around the ties some crystal coins, like one in the dustbin, one under some shelf in some building. These were created by Iryont, given to you by Iryont, like these
yes,
rewards.
I,
Okay.
you can imagine it like a teenager asking his father for like some cash for the week, entertain the people, and then exactly what happened.
Okay, okay,
I
sorry.
asked him, I asked him for some pocket money so I could run events, and he granted it to me. And in all honest, I never abused that money. I only used it for events, and that's that's exactly what happened back then. You know, I distributed that kind of crystal coins, or it was not always crystal coins, to be honest. Sometimes it were crystal coins, but only at really good events. Mostly, as I said, I didn't want to have it diluted. I didn't want to dilute the entire event thing, and Aaron didn't want as well. So it wasn't like that we were spending millions of GPs on events. It was more like, I think in total, like maybe 2 million in the entire years, something like that.
So to rewamp the main question, do you think you were too close over the line with the community?
Yeah. So um, I think to really understand my behavior and my relationship with the community, you need to understand my original, pointed out, original understanding of my rule, and Iron's original understanding of my rule. So my rule was to entertain, to be a rule enforcement. And if you read again which I did gladly today, the post of Iryont about me joining the team, he says exactly a direct connectionship with the leadership and administration of the server. And I wanted actually to be that. I wanted to be the person, you have something to cry about, come to me, and I will see if I can help you or not. And I will try to bound that. And my intention was always to have justice, to have a fair gameplay and the playability for all players. Playability, I mean, like you can play freely and you have a free choice. And you can either join a war or not join a war, but you have a free choice. So you have a maximum joy for everyone. And so I had a mind change, obviously, when I was a CM, and I changed my mind as well while being a CM. Like I knew or I know now that it was definitely I was too close to the community and I was too emotionally involved myself because I'm really easy emotionally involved with Medivia because Aaron and Medivia are really close. This is something which I really like. It's important to me and there's its success is important to me. And you can argue why. I don't even know why. I made the decision that it's important to me, so it is important to me. And yeah, so I was always afraid like that we might fail with the project, that we lose players due to the cheating, to the random PKing, power abusing, which was really present back then. It's not like today. Today, the community is like, oh my god, everyone is like happy and Pokemon playing. No, back in the days, you had two war teams who were playing it, warring against each other, and when one war team won the war, they would just simply abuse everyone else who was neutral, and they're just like put level restrictions on everyone. It's like it's not like it wasn't Pony Farm, and so obviously you have this laissez-faire approach in raising people and as well like in having like let people play. But there's always the kind of destructive behavior you have sometimes you have to think about, like do you really want that to happen? Do you really want neutral players to suffer from these retards? And yeah, the answer needs to be determined by someone else because I don't have it. I just know that a lot of things which I did because I was so close to relationship ended to us in a really good sense. Think about the sprite competition we made. Like we had so much good sprites we actually implemented into the game. We had Josh and Mark Akavaras like submitting sprites which like we would have paid for and we didn't have the money for it. So it was like a really good deal to get new sprites, to have like people actually hands-on committing to the big project of Medivia. And like we had a house competition where people design stuff. We had like competitions to advertise it. It was like only possible because I was like close to the people, could motivate them, etc. And it got us to a pretty good status, I think. And I think like this hands-on mentality to involve the player base into decision making, to give them the feeling that yeah, we need their help, and we do, or we did, or not we. Okay, I don't say we. I don't mean now. Okay, when I'm talking about we in the past.
Sure thing.
So we needed back then the player, and I think still that Medivir needs always, obviously, the feedback. We had polls, we had all these systems which involve player interaction. I think like a certain connection to the players is good, but what I did to a certain extent, like to involve too much, is too much, But yeah, I eventually I hope that I can answer this in another question of you later on a little bit more, because that's like a really complex topic.
Yeah. So how would you compare yourself to McGregor? I don't know how familiar are you with how McGregor um, treats his community manager position, but he like seems very opposite from what you were. You cannot see him in game. He's like behind the scenes, and like you think his approach is better or yours, or is it just different styles?
I know McGregor.
Okay.
uh, I did when, yeah, doesn't matter. Um, Point is, I know that he's different, and he's different for a reason, because the way I did it, or my approach, it didn't work out for Medivia, and it might not work out for any game, and that's a good learning curve for all of us. For especially in the administration team, to identify, find something, some things you imagine to work and they don't work. I always imagined raids and like events to work a little bit different than they actually did, and to have like people, oh my god, an event so fucking nice, but they actually always wanted to have good rewards. So it's again something you learn by doing, and I think Madrago one is a good selection of a person who, because he is in the end a very calm person, and a person who's fulfilling the needs which Medivir has at this point in time, to the extent where the adminship wants it.
Okay. Um, I think it's a good time to maybe get into epic quests, which we kind of touched upon around Forgula. But I wanted to ask you as at first, did you really had some inside info about the epic quests?
No, I did not have insights into epic quests in that detail as people might think or people might believe, you know. So I know that there's, for example, a phrase where I made a statement about like, or I did these like teasing of people, right? I did tease people with like, and I did give them hints and like brackets. And the idea here was that the first of all, like, I, I know that I as well said that I did test all epic quests and they work fine, and to basically get rid of the idea that they're bugged. Yeah. So I did say that, but actually, what I meant is that we as a team back then had split it works. Okay. So, and I basically did work on the update and the maintaining and on the community management and on all the other stuff. And Aaron did the work basically on technical side, and as well on his stuff, content he created. I wanted that to be sure. And I asked him back then, because we had the feedback from the community, is this stuff really working? And I asked him, can you please check it? Because I don't have the time to do it myself. And, personally, in the end, I never asked himself for like hints for epic quests, because I mean, like, that's something. It's out of the relationship you might that Aaron and I had to ask such things, like, because why would I ask about it? Like, do I want to change them? Well, if I want to change them, I can just ask for the script. Fine, give it to me. But why would I want to have them changed if they're not found yet? That's the idea behind it. And I think, um as Aaron said, like, the the truth is that I did not have insights about them, and I did never want to have, because I was actually not really interested into them. Uh, because, as I referred with the Spikes quest, they're not, I think, really rational. And whenever I did gave hints about them, it was more that I tried to refer to my Spike Sword quest and try to give people the idea, guys, like, the thing, don't think the way you think right now. Like, this is a linear quest. It's not. And these epic quests, they're like there to fascinate the people, and I think that's the reason why they're so hard, because to keep people motivated. And maybe it was wrong to tease people into the direction that, hey, it's out there, you can do it, to give them hints. And I mean, like, these hints I gave were not hints to actually solve these quests. They were just like, you didn't think into this direction, right? And they didn't. And maybe you want to think in this direction, and maybe that's as an attempt to solution. But I never, because I never had insights in that depth, I never gave insights out, and that's the entire point about it. And I think, like, the beauty about epic quests is that they're they leave so much room for like interpretation, and someone who will ever eventually someone solve one of these will either, as I did, keep the spike sword and just like leave it in the backpack and don't make a fucking post about it, or will post about it and make like a big fuss out of it. But the point taken is that if you ever uh, make such an epic quest, then you're in a certain sense legendary, and I think that's the entire idea about it, and that's the real good thing about it. And since I, yeah, I'm a little bit critical about that in my head to myself, because when I'm now thinking about it, I didn't want to trick people. I just wanted to give the people to not stop looking for alternative ways of playing the game. And as I say, it's not about level. It's not about war all the time. It's about how you approach the entire idea of a game. And if the idea of the game is to look for quests and to strive to look into books, like, and to read these books, and eventually to count every fourth word in the book, and eventually the fourth letter of the fourth word in the book, it will turn out to give you something you didn't know. Hey, maybe that's the solution to the epic quest, or maybe it's just a really big waste of time. But if that's fun to you, then do it. And that's why I wanted actually to push people out. I didn't want to have people waste time, and I'm sorry if I did that. It was really not the intention. The intention was to get people straight to think into other directions, and to really strive for a different approach of playing, and think out of the box. Don't think, hey, I will find a book and it will tell me what to do for the epic quest, man. It won't do. Something like that doesn't happen.
So just to get the fact straight, you personally had like no confirmation if the epics actually worked.
I did have the confirmation because I asked Iryont to test them, and he did test them.
Okay. I mean,
I mean, like, the point is, that's what I'm saying. It's not like the relationship within our working team was not like, hey, you do it, and I will just no. I know that I was there when he did it, and it was working fine, and it's just like similar to when I did test a script. It was not like he will control and read everything again. Like you know that it worked. You saw that it worked. I obviously saw like stuff happening on the map, and I obviously saw like things eventually that he did that I sometimes try to refer when I'm giving hints, like maybe time pass, maybe whatever. I was like trying to push people into the idea of like how to solve them, but my real intention was not really to get too in depth of epic quest, because that's something Iryont did. It's his baby, so to say, yeah. And that I don't need to involve into that, and I don't need to understand, because we both have a very different way of thinking. And that's the beauty of it, because in a team you don't want to have the people who think in the same way. And so finalization of this long monologue again. Epic quests, they exist, and you just need to look for them in a way that you would not look for a normal quest. That's what I tried to give like the people the hint at is, I couldn't say, hey, I solved the epic quest on a Rookgaard with the spike sword in this and this sense. No, but I wanted to have people moving into the right direction.
So, the designer of Epic Quest was Iryont himself?
Yeah, okay. This obviously I don't know, because I didn't make I wasn't in the initial creation of Medivia, but I know that like everything before was done by him, and every single piece. Iryont is a very detailed person, and he's very into every small change, and he lives it. And that's the beauty of this administration, because he's actually into the project more than most of the people think he is. And I think that's as well like the point about like, I think that not I think, I'm really 100% convinced that he did the epics. And there were even a couple of times when we were like chatting about it and like even touched on upon the topic, but it's like I never took up the question about like, hey man, can you send me the script because I don't want to know about it. Because yeah, it's not my cup of tea, because I didn't want to learn from that, because there was no learning effect for me, because these kind of quests, they really work different to what I wanted to do. I wanted to push the game into another direction, but epic quests, they still can exist, obviously, because that's not part of any update. It's something which exists from the beginning. It's something Aaron did for the server, and I think that's his his treasure, like. And maybe they're so hard because when you solve them, you actually prove that you understand how he thinks, or see it this way. And this is why they're so hard, and this is why I never wanted to enter into that frontier, so to say.
All right. Um, Around the epic quest and the mechanics of the game, you once said that like in your one of the in-game lectures about epics, etc., you said we have Old Widow spawning every 96 hours, the Modras every 156 hours, and Goshner 10 minutes, Gladiator 400 hours. Is that how it works, the mechanism?
Well, I it really, when I read that question, because I'm happy you sent it to me before, I was like a little bit, what to say to this. So, in all honest, I did make up these numbers, but the point is, these are average numbers, okay? It's like, it's obviously, things are not static, It's on a statistical level, that's the amount, or not. This is the amount, okay? I don't say that this is the exact number, but what I'm saying is, on the average, it would be like that. But obviously, as well as loot, as you know, it's not average. It's something which is calculated every interval, and the interval is to be determined, So you can call a random script and you can ask, will it spawn or not? And it's not like it will spawn after this time for sure. It will spawn after this time on a regular statistical background. If you look at it like on a statistical average, it will spawn at that point in time eventually. Like, not exactly these numbers, but it will spawn at some point in time. But it won't necessarily spawn to it won't spawn for sure. That's why I'm just saying. That's the same about like any kind of loot. You won't be sure that you will loot every fourth 100 ghoul life ring. That's not true. You might not loot a life ring at all in your Medivia career. A ghoul, a life ring and a ghoul, never. But that's because every ghoul will have an own random process running about this loot, and that's the entire point about it.
Okay, that's very helpful and I think clarifying. I have two more quotes about the epics. One you kind of answered, but I still want to bring it up. It's a quote. Apparently, when I became a community manager, I did run all epic quests, and indeed some bugs were in game. However, they were not making it impossible to solve the epics. And one more quote. I did indeed perform and solve all epics as community manager, and my new ones are reasonable as well. How would you comment on that now?
Okay, so the first one, so apparently when I became CM, I did run all the epic quests. I referred to this when I said like back then Aaron did test them, and I mean that I asked him to test it, and he did basically. And so I just, I'm one flaw of myself is that I want to help always, and I want always to solve the problems for the others, and I want to like be the one who's the problem solver. This is why I actually said that, yeah, guys, it's working, because it is working. But the point is, like, people wanted to have the actual proof, and I didn't want to say that Aaron did test it. I wanted to say that I did test them, because then I think like that people will actually believe it. That might be a really bad idea to do that, But the truth is that yeah, as I said, you make decisions in your life, and I made that decision to say that. And I think that in the end, the intention was here just to clarify epics do work. They didn't work 100%ly in that sense that some lever, for example, was not like pullable. That's true, but this was fixed. But it didn't really make the epics undoable at that point in time. I know that it would just make them more harder, for example. Okay, but this one, and I only know of one basically, and that's it. That where one was a mistake, and I basically found that when I was making the new update. I did found about that one. Second one, yeah, I did indeed perform and solve all epic quests at CM. Answered that part, and my new ones are reasonable as well. Yeah, epic quests from Doyle. If you were ever coming to that point in life where we would have the Clash of Races update, you would have been able to enjoy them. But since we don't, you won't. And in the first update, and as well in the second update for Lands with the Ogres, there were no epic quests from me introduced, which were finally in game. There were some epic quests, but we didn't introduce them because they were so different to the first epic quests that we decided not to do them in that sense. We decided then rather to shift stuff and move it to the Clash of Races update, to then have like what you now have on like the Abukir update, where you have like a big quest which you can do as a team. We had like team quests which were like epic team quests in that sense. That was the idea behind it, to have like team quests where you actually involve multiple players with multiple ideas and skill sets and locations. And there was like a couple of new really big quests which were or should have been introduced but weren't.
Do you remember the Ruthless 7? Like you could get.
Yeah, I made them.
Okay, so these were yours. Okay.
So what I think I need to point out that every content which was released in the first two updates, so Foreign Lands and Awakening of the Gods, was created by me. Like, and apart from kudos to Josh for the help, except for like at least 60% of the maps helping out Josh. Foreign Lands I did on my own, but let's focus. It doesn't matter. Josh really did a good job here. He helped out on the maps, and apart from that, everything like was done by me. Like, and because Iryont was really busy with the client and the web page and all these kind of stuff, like he was stuck into that, and I was left like on the front alone with all this update stuff, with balancing monsters, and that was really a hard part. And for an unpaid labor, it was indeed for me, so to say, like a hard part. But I wanted to do that really badly because it was fun to me to a certain extent. And yeah, that's it.
So there is one more statement. It is not a quote because I couldn't find the topic or the post. I don't know if it still exists on the forum. But I remember that after your release, Iryont said something to the sense that the things you said in the lectures about epics were more or less lies. And he said that he would never give any community manager a knowledge or ability to obtain like influential items, like for example magic longsword or golden helmet, like stuff of that caliber. How much of a truth is this statement? And also because you said you designed some epic quests that weren't introduced, were the rewards of this caliber, or they were like again more about the journey of the quest?
No, the quest that I designed was like, actually it was, I think they use a somewhat similar script on Abukir, when you have the treasure and the treasure is random. Like the rewards are random, right? They are random, or to a certain extent. You don't always get the same reward.
Yeah, in the Forgula, I think.
That's we had a vocation quest same principle. In the end, you could get like a selection of like 15 items. I think even Dragon Scale Mail Helmet was in legs, but as well like only like a red tome or something. So like really downers and like really good items. It was the called the Treasure of Banner quest, and yeah. So this is more in that sense. What I wanted to introduce with Ruthless 7 is that we establish end game monsters where, for example, at that point in time, we had like level 200, 220 players. And I think like at this point in time, they didn't have really a lot to do and they didn't have really cool items to loot. Because what is your final end set, right? I mean, like with Lightbringers and Queen Followers, I tried to introduce monsters which are like top end and hard to hunt, but drop like really hard and cool stuff. And I think Lightbringer lacks, or Hellforge lacks, so to say, and Hellforge armor are good items in a sense from a top end perspective. But there are a couple of items, rare items, which are not in game and not obtainable through any epic quest. And the idea here was to make them available by the Ruthless 7, to have like monsters and demons which you can only kill by in a big team, and to give then the player the ability to loot like what we did, gold nuggets, and eventually as well a winged helm and stuff like that. But we didn't we implemented some of the loot, but we didn't implement all of it. We in the end we removed, I think, even the loot from the archdemons or some part of it, because yeah, I mean, like the idea of Iron is that epic quests are there to get these final stage items, which are like old school epic items, which are just like in your dreams, basically, like the golden helmet, which is really a part of the old school set, right? I mean, like I only know one person on entire Tibia who ever had a golden helmet, and it was Grin on Netania. And he did receive that from the administration of Zipsoft because he solved like a bug where he could get free premium. And the idea here is that, yeah, that's a really hard obtainable item. And to come back to your question about like if I had knowledge or not, and yeah, obviously Aaron, this is as well to many situations here in putting things into the right light. I didn't had the ability to, or didn't get the ability from him to make these kind of quests because he didn't want to have end lootable items except its new custom loot items in there. And I think he did that for a reason, because he didn't want to have a winged helmet on the server looted by someone. Like maybe getting by an epic quest, but looting, that's not a good idea. But yeah, that was a conflicting part in in our relationship, and I think that's a good thing, you know, because you need to evaluate. I wanted to run when we couldn't really work, and I wanted to change the community or eventually introduce stuff for the sake of introducing it. I wanted to have finally this kind of stuff in game, and yeah, he's right about like saying, well, old school players eventually don't want to loot these items in regular monsters. Although I don't count archdemons to a regular monster, but in the end, it's a regular spawn. Okay.
Yeah, I think it closed the topic of epics. Epics, I think. Yeah,
Finally.
yeah, finally. You gave a lot of info. I think a lot of cool info. But a short topic. I mean, I don't know if it's a short topic for you, but the one I have to ask is heroes on the Thais boat.
Yeah, good story, and it's an easy one, you know. So normal day in my CM life, I patrol, and I see a boat trap, which was very active during that time. Boat traps, very popular. There was a bunch of Polish random PKs. They just had free accounts. I knew them already because they were. I'm seeing a lot on Thais, South Thais at this guild hall, the bigger one. So yeah, they will killing with MCs, people in the boat, and yeah, as I said, I really dislike or started to dislike random PKing when I started on Medivia, because I always felt like, man, this person put so much time into like evolving the share, and you just kill it because, yeah, because you're bored. and you waste basically people's time and for no reason. Like if you kill someone in war, that's a different story. But killing someone who didn't really do anything to you, just like it makes me furious. And yeah, they were basically destroying the community. They were not really contributing anything to the community. They were just like you can compare them to like really thugs. And I felt like I'm the guardian as the CM for the community, and obviously I can't call a ban on them because making a bow trap is something I encourage people to do on Medivia. Yeah, because it's a part of the sandbox game. You can do that. It's freedom. But I, as a CM manager, did as well take the freedom to say, well, there's a king as well in these lands, and that king is called Tibianus. And when he decides to like get rid of the thugs on his boat because the boat is blocked by these thugs, then he just sends two heroes to clean it. And that's exactly what happened. So King Tibianus gave me a call, and I just sent the two heroes there. They cleaned the boat. End of the story. And I don't even know why that is not enough to be to be a fun story instead of like the crybabies. In the end, they just made the big fuss out of it. I could have, I could have found other explanations for it because I could just like, yeah, I made an event or whatever. No, they were just like, it's an RPG step of like the town defending itself against PKs. End of story.
I totally agree. Like it is fun story to hear and tell. But I wonder, from perspective of time, would you say it was a good call to use the CM abilities to end something that well, wasn't
No,
illegal and
I mean, like, this is obviously really straightforward. It's not a good idea to do that. But as I I didn't have. I wanted to have office hours, but I didn't. Basically, spending so much time into this game, and I was so much committed to it that I sometimes forgot about the real like what the distance and the emotional. So I was really emotionally impacted by this really stupid random PKing guys, and it was in the end a really bad move for me. But yeah, I didn't know how to help myself. I wanted to help the community to get rid of these really stupid random PKs, and I didn't want people to stop playing because they die in a boat trap because of these fools who just destroy the game. But yeah, you don't have much choice, right? That's that's the curse of a sandbox game. You can do everything you want to, and people do everything they want to, and they don't care about like the fate of and the experience of the other players because they're just not into them. They have no ability to actually feel into them and what they feel when they leveled up 14 hours whatsoever in Circoplopolis, looting, I don't know, 50k, getting boots of haste, dropping them in the fucking boat trap. That's the game, but it's not. When you think about it in more detail, it's not what you want people to experience on your server.
if you could, would you change that aspect of the game, like the
No,
punish of the death?
no, no, definitely not. So I'm when you go for that question, I'm a really big enemy of protection zones.
Okay.
I think so. My when I would I would create a sandbox server, I would make it definitely without any protection zones whatsoever. I would make houses, but I would like to have people to be able to break into houses, and you can have like when someone is breaking into your door, you could have like protections, like a warlock spawning then or a black knight. You can just like basically buy them somewhere, like hire them to spawn them. But yeah, I think this entire idea of protection zones is like the, it's not thought to the end, And what Zipsoft did in the end with the boats being a protection, that's totally stupid. But this midway of having like certain protection zones is not. It's not a good idea in my opinion either. So I think like protection zones are are just a fuss. Like you could make the depot and put some guards there, like town guards, and they automatically attack everyone who's trying to attack people. But don't make people not attack people anywhere they want to, and don't make people like kill everyone who they want to, where they want to, because if you really want a sandbox game, live it. But yeah, it's not adaptable to Medivir. But yeah, as I said, I wouldn't introduce a skull system. I wouldn't introduce a frag system and a protection zone, because that's all what I think about it.
So I think you mentioned like throughout the interview a few times that like yeah, you had a lot of ideas, not only for events but overall for the growth of Medivia for the future, how to make it known. Um, and you also said that you and Iryont were not always on the same page in all of this. Would you say like what were, for example, the conflicts, like different ideas, like you would go this way, he would go this way?
I think the way how to grow Medivia is a different mindset in our both minds. I As I said, I more come from the startup business, and I would always, I mean, like that's putting it into wrong impression. Medivia is a startup, and Medivia is a young startup, and it's a good startup. And with Iryont, they have a reasonable founder who's technical and administration wise a good choice to lead such a project. But I think like in the aggressiveness of growth, we're having both a different opinion. I would I would always have like so where Medivir is now, like a custom game. That's what I wanted to have Medivir at, like from the very beginning. Get rid of all the fucking sprites from Sipsoft. Get rid of Sipsoft and Tibir, the name. Get rid of it, because it just gives you problems, in my opinion. And on the other hand, so make a custom game, make a unique custom game that's a standalone game, make a standalone client. He did, I mean, like Aaron did a great job in like making a client that this and the server that is custom. It's not custom, it's a unique piece. It's like it doesn't exist somewhere. And it's something you have to value in a certain sense, that it is already unique and it is already a standalone game. But from the content wise and from their aggressiveness on how to approach new users, I think there's a mismatch in our approach to solution. Like I think he's more into a conservative manner, and I would just like, fuck it, man. Like put language versions of the game and aggressively move into the Asian market and just like try to acquire new users there. And how you can do that, I would have multiple ways to do that, And the idea is just like growing in other markets with new customers and not getting rid of the old ones, but like like the entire setup of Medivir and the entire gameplay at the moment is like aiming on long-term fun, long-term commitment. And I think like that's not where the market necessarily goes towards that. But that's a very personal opinion, like I would make the game or try to make the game more vivid in the sense that you have more short-term, not servers, like short-term playing abilities, that you use your character, which you have, for example, now, and lock into like an hour game where I have like defend Thais from Big Raid, which is coming in, and or like like you have like a custom server where you can log in and like have short-term fun with either your character, which you establish on that short-term server, or you always die and start with a brand new server, whatever, like it will like getting into this League of Legends kind of gameplay feeling, Counter-Strike, Mountain Blade, whatever you want to call it, like short-term fun. That's where where I would acquire new users from, and get them then commit into the long-term game. But yeah, that's I think like one of the most critical points we have nowadays. In the past, it was multiple, obviously, like every change which I got to Medivir was like a threat to the game. On the other hand, change is good, but change can as well be threatening the existing game. And that was obviously like always. We had a lot of fights, and I'm happy on one hand not to be in the situation again to have to like argue with him about like these kind of topics, because yeah, in the end, and that's really important to understand, it's his business and it's not mine. And i want I want always him to finally make the decision, because he takes the responsibility, and it's his creation, his baby, so to say. And I wanted to help him, wanted to help him, and I still want obviously to help him. But I think that it's important to mention here that in the end, Iryont is the maker of Medivir, and Iryont does the decision making. And I think Iryont does that in a way that he knows his players, he knows what he's good at, and he knows what his players want. And too much change can put that into a risk. And unless you go for aggressive growth in other areas, which is high risk as well, you want first of all to make sure that your current players are happy with the stuff you introduce or not.
Do you think that if you weren't cut from the team, kicked from the team, do you think at some point would you leave anyway because of the difference in the approach to the growth of the game?
So what many people actually don't know, I plan to leave that year anyways, because I started an own company myself. I have a lot of other stuff basically to do, and I wanted to finish and I did finish the Clash of Races update, and that would have finished the entire Lightbringer and Tain army story and the factions. And in the end, the vocation quest, which I was talking about previously, is like would bring the people together. Like it would just very quickly, to give you the plot, is that people will find out, or would have found out in that update, that every person, like Tibianos, but as well like Muir, like gets infected by the seed of Satroth, like this evilness. It approaches to everyone who has the power. And it's so funny, like, because in the end we will talk about this as well, is like everyone is like, and it's so funny when I think about Lightbringer update, is that what I wrote there actually is true for myself, although I actually even wanted to point that out, that this is like, I wanted to educate the people that, guys, take care, people with might actually always get corrupted. It's a sense, like they get corrupted, unless it's someone like whoever, like, but people always get corrupted when they have power. And that what would happen to the Lightbringers as well. And then in the end, to figure out that Muir and his entire rebellion is heading towards the destruction of the world, with the Ruthless Seven coming to life again. And basically with this energy field, which is down in Midvolin, destroying everything and basically unleashing these demons and destroying the world. And what you would have to do is, in the final quest, is to align with Tain army members and do one big fucking quest and close the gate to Sephiroth. And that's the entire idea about it. And that was the entire idea about it. So coming back to the original question, I made the final Clash of Races update to as well say goodbye, and to there was as well one guy, one spriter. He did for free like a small monument, like sprite for me, and I did like a small place at some near Orc Fortress, basically, where I had like a small, like, I don't know, monument for myself.
Yeah.
Egoistic, but I wanted to have like, yeah, that's the place where people basically can like see, okay, this is this was the Doyle period, and it would have ended that year anyways, you know. So it's it's a little bit funny that it ended that way instead of the other, damaging so much more than I actually intended to do good. But yeah, to this point in time, I think the only commitment, if I was still in the team, to occasionally get online and to events, and that's the only thing what I really enjoy doing. In the end, it was not the update work or whatsoever, because when you do updates on a game, trust me or not, you will stop loving the game. You will feel like, oh my god, this is like so tedious, so intense. You spend so much hours. I mean, like, I'm really not spending like weeks, like months, like really, I spent like 2 years of my life like devoting it to this project. And I mean, like, that I didn't stop studying, but I really put a lot of time into it, and I really try to push it hard, and I learned so much from it, and that's the good part about it. And I wanted to take this learning to my new project and to my new frontier, basically, where I want to heat at. And this is where I would stand today as well, just with the small detail that it's not like that we would have to do this interview and I would have to clarify some of the causes, which I did in a bad sense, but it would only be that people would have a cool update with Minto Towers zigging the Orc Fortress, and the new game designers would have their content and eventually revoke my old content as well, because things change, right? Things evolve. Similar to the rebellion evolves, and that's everything I want to point on that topic.
So the next topic we want to touch upon is trading characters. I'm sure you remember there is this famous post written by you stating how it will never be legal, how bad it is for the game development, the trading cards. It is still on the forum, but under the McGregor nickname, I think. And as I remember, it was made after the uproar about Akuma. He was like close to 200 Elite Knight at this point, which was very huge in those days. And the character is still active today. And I think he had like 2 or 4 weeks banishment, and after that, basically the character was legally this guy, the new owner. Then there was Zoltan that was sold, and it was also a lot of drama about him, but again, like, nothing serious happened in terms of punishment. And before that, like, many cars were sold. You know that yourself, like loads of them, which, like, in the law of Tibenic rules was against the rules. And the first question about the trading cards, like, why this rule wasn't enforced enough?
Well, when you read the post which or the small essay which I wrote back then closely, we will understand that it's not forbidden on TBN because it's forbidden, but it needs to be forbidden, you know, because it's a bad thing. It's not a good thing, account trading. But, like, okay, how do I put in? I will try to span a very small circle. Like, in most of the updates, or in the 2 updates which I made, it was about educating the players that every decision they make is reflecting on their standings and on their world. Like, if you join a certain faction, and if you do certain quests there, and if you decide to kill Daramian prayers and the natives of Daramian, then you will be excluded forever from the Lightbringers, because that's a bad action. You kill natives just because you are just like a bad person in that sense, you know? So I wanted to have people reflect on what they do, and the world you are living in, you are creating yourself. Your actions basically have consequences. And rule enforcement does not work in a community that does not want to stick to these rules, basically, you know? So I can tell you that I knew about account trading, and similar to everyone else in the community, knew about this heavy account trading, and we did try to ban people. You know, it's not like that. It wasn't a really big topic, and I had really bad times with Aaron talking about it, because it's like he he's a bit more conservative in the sense that we need proofs. He's like he's a really good policeman, in my opinion. Like because he wouldn't just do something without. He's a good lawyer in that sense as well. Sticking to like that's the law, but you need a proof. You need some kind of proof, and an IP change is not necessarily a proof. And the question is always like, how much does the IP changes, and is the IP dynamic? It's nothing you can say on straight, and when you are to the community and when you're close to the community, you obviously know. And I knew, and I was trying to do something about it. I was trying to ban people, and I did ban people. I mean, like, I did really ban a lot of people for account training. But as you know, the first banishment on Medivia for account training was maximum 4 weeks, and the second one would be deletion, but only if you have a second, if you already have an entry in your rule violations. And back then I could, whenever I tried to handle that kind of topic, it ended into like really, and like I was, just to give you an idea about the scope of this, like I was threatened in real life a couple of times, like with real letters, like about that topic, like. And it's not that I mind getting letters, or I'm afraid of like whoever comes up and try to like make a point, they're welcome to do so. But the point is, it was really getting a little bit out of hands. And remember back then, you had two big war teams and you had the neutral ones. And what happened in that phase is that all the war teams bought up all neutral high levels, all of them. They basically bought all of them. Like Dominic's, I mean, like that person, I mean, I named his name a couple of times in the interview. That doesn't mean that I have any kind of enthusiasm for him, okay? But this person really spent a lot of money on Medivia shares, and so did others. And in the end, like I tried to interfere and I tried to banish people, and you might, like, for an external, it might not be that present, but both teams basically after each other accused me for supporting the other team as a CM because I was banishing their characters. But I was just doing my job, and I was banishing characters from both teams, and not only from one team. And if you remember how that finally ended, is that there was the I don't know, like some of the new leaders. It was not Astrid from the Polish team. Like I think some mentally impaired person, in my opinion. That guy, he was on some Ridley or Riley, blah 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 blah. I don't know, but he was like buying his share basically and making super power abusive moves. And we did ban him for account trading. And what happened is that the Polish team basically tried to ransom him out by just killing everyone in Vinor.
Yeah, I remember this one.
And that was like a real hard part, because I remember sitting with Iryont until 4 a.m. and thinking about what to do against that, like, because there's a group of people who is aggressive and trying to ransom out, trying to like break you because they killed people. And what would you do, And in the end, how things ended, like I think I fell over my flaws as a CM by, like, we come to this in a second. But on the other hand, if you really would have tried to enforce rules against these two teams, I don't think this would have worked, because you always have to make a decision. And that's simply not, it's a lost cause, So I think, in my opinion, controlling a server that already exists and to try to establish control there is really like a lost cause. And it's, you will never get all of the account rates. You will never try get like justice on the server. You would just have to hope that the people are educated enough and that they are actually like seeing the point that when they do account trading, and other will do it as well. And if it is like commonly acknowledged that you can account trade, that this will not turn the server into a good one. And I think like the opportunity is at new servers when they grow to have like a more enforced rule set up there. But yeah, that's something administration of Medivir needs to solve today, and I wish them good luck in that.
I was kind of surprised that because I understand the point, and I kind of get that it would be a mistake to enforce such a strict rules from day one when the community was like 10, 20, 30 people. But I was very surprised when there was a launch of Spectrum, and it was crazy loads of people at the beginning, and people hoped that rules would be enforced there from the day zero, and this one failed as well. And I sometimes just wonder like why, because I thought that if the server was like done by the book of rules from the day zero and with such a big community, it could work, but it didn't again, and it ended up like Legacy with traded characters, Chendnix like a few times.
I think what you need to understand as a player is that administration is really busy doing a lot of stuff, but not necessarily taking care of the shit people actually cause. It's like, imagine when I was CM, I was not paid necessarily. I was not paid. I told you. And McGregor obviously is a different story, but again, there's a lot of other stuff to do than to chase for account trading. And it's like, I mean, like, of course you can try to enforce something like the account trading part and not allow it and like really be strict about it, but still you will not necessarily be sure that you will catch all of the account traders, and there will always be injustice in that sense. Okay, injustice because not everyone is punished, and that will come back to you. It's like a boomerang effect, and it's like, as I said before, you have to determine the server and the world, and that's not only for Medivia, it's for the world. Okay, like the world you are living in is determined on your actions, and if you are willing to accept that everyone is doing account trading and you are because you are doing account trading, then fine, then live in such a game server and accept the fact that this is happening. And if you're not, then you can say no, and if every individual would do that decision, there would not be account trading because every individual does that decision. So it's an individual decision to account trade or not, to cheat or not, and in the end, it's really up to the single players. And you can't, where the Medivir administration is not this the FBI, not the CSA, who is able to see into every chat control and to every IP control and whatsoever. I tried to do that, not chatting chats. That's not true. I didn't do that. It's something what I want to point out. At the whatever you write on Medivir, it's like really really private. But obviously we try to check IPs and stuff like that. But yeah, forget about it. I mean, like, control is an illusion.
So after this post was published, after all those stories about and dramas about tryhards, then we found out, you can clarify, that you did it yourself. You used some character in the Peninsula Sneak that I'm sure you will tell us about in a moment. But before we get to the Peninsula action, what were your origins of this character you used? How did you get it?
So again, I have to say that I bought a lot of characters during my pre-CM phase. Like, I bought Holding Moon, like a couple of, even Trianos. I think I even played that character for a couple of times. And this character, I don't even know who I bought it from, to be very honest. It was just lying somewhere around my in the depth of my computer with the account access. It wasn't used by anyone else. I think I gave it once to Tony to make runes on it because I didn't have any use for it. I didn't have any use for it. because I was CM at that point, right? So, but I bought that character. I think I bought it even before I was CM. I was just lying around, because I always like the idea to have a mage to just like go fight. But at that point in time, obviously, a mage on that level wasn't really dangerous. Anyway, yeah, that's the origin of that character. So the character was just like there.
So how it all happened? Like, tell us about the Peninsula Sneak, and how far before the Peninsula Sneak you started to use the character of other characters, being community manager at the same time.
Okay. So first of all, I deny everything. Okay. So anyway, I need to point out I did, and I mean that I did not play. And when I say I did not play, right, I mean like I did not play. I never played. Okay, I even on characters I bought, I never took more than 10 levels in total in my entire career for all of the characters. The only character I ever leveled was Namus Kaios, and then the highest level I ever got was 27. And the highest character I ever got on real TBA was like 67. And it's like, I'm totally not into experience taking. I'm totally not into. I just hate it, to be honest. And so I did not play in a sense that I lock in and do something. Okay, and I want to say that again, that I did not play with this character as well. I did not play. What I did use is the character for this action. That's true. And let me try to involve you in my thinking back then. Okay. So I said that, yeah. So my situation back then, if you are ever an admin of a game, you entirely, on the one hand, lose the fun playing it. Okay, so this is why I can tell to anyone, be admin, you will not be anymore caring about playing this game. Trust me, it will be like that. And there's no discussion about any admin playing his own game. He's just stupid if he does, because it's just like all the fun goes away, even hunting polar bears. But yeah, and I was like, my origin is coming from the following. So go back to the starting phase when I started TBNing. I was a player who's an RPG-ish, funny war player. I'm not a hardcore war player. I was a funny war player. I was making like stupid forum posts, and I was just trying to mess around, and I like the thrill of fights, but I'm not that good in fighting. Anyway, and I decided to basically devote like a really long time in my life, and that period was at least 2 years, a little bit more than that, actually 2.5 years, to really spend like really a lot of hours into a game and into evolvement of that game and to make it better. And I really want badly to keep the community together, to keep the community growing. And at that point in time, the Polish team did won the war against whatever they fought, I don't know, actually. And they started to do a lot of power abusing, and they put a lot of level restrictions on people. They were really just destructive and abusive in their behavior. And see it the way you want to see it, they destroy the community. And back then I was so emotionally committed to the game and to this work that they basically destroyed my work, my life at that time. I was online checking emails, whatever, like every day, Sunday to Monday, fucking every day, 24/7. I was available for this game, and they were just destroying it. And they were not even destroying it, okay? From characters, they leveled themselves. No, we all know that these people, they were not even buying premium account for real money. They were buying premium account for cash they got by hunting on high levels buying in-game, therefore the premium accounts, and buying the characters they bought for cheap money from others or whatever, and they basically, or they put level restrictions on people, and then they said like, you can sell us your character if you want to for 100, but you won't be able to play if you don't. So that's a nice offer, right? So that actually happened. It's not fake. That happened. So they were basically like really destructive in their behavior. But on the other hand, I cannot, as a CM, ban them. So I'm in a really tricky situation. I cannot ban them, except for account training eventually if I can prove it. But at this point in time, we were already a little bit restricted for account training bans because there was so much drama about it, and like always like bad news about me on Polish forums, they being corrupted, and on Dominic's forums about being corrupted. So I don't know who I actually was really corrupted against, like Polish or Dominic teams, because in the end both teams accused me all the time to be corrupted, all the time. Even friends did, and I said like, dude, man, shut the fuck up. I just do my job and I just try to be neutral in a sense. And if your team bought this character, live with it. You have to live with it, and I know that he did. So, and if I can't prove that the Polish person bought another character from a Polish person because the IP didn't, I can't prove it. So it's a totally different story, you know? Anyway, so yeah, I cannot do anything against them. And again, the question is really, do you want to play on in a server in a world where everyone does what you do at the moment? Like that's the question they should have asked themselves, but they don't. Obviously, they wouldn't have. They didn't spend any thought about like, is it fun for the other players who are basically suppressed, who have power abuse or whatsoever? They didn't ask you this question, and I want actually always to ask, like, yeah, to people should ask them this question. So yeah, and I mean like coming back to the point about like using this character. So I was literally like stuck in a situation where from the admin side I can't do anything, but I know that these people are so destructive and they're so unfairly gained advantage of whatever, that it's a really like a pet situation. And back that day I was like feeling like, this guy, I know that this guy bought this account, this person, because I know it from other persons because I knew the original owner. But I can't do that because, you know, this is not how policemen would work. If you want to put us as policemen would work with facts. We don't have the proofs, so we can't just ban him because that would be corrupted. That would be corrupted. And so yeah, it was like, in all honest, I was like in that Tom, and I was just standing there in this one room, and I knew when he was coming in, and then I just locked into the shirt and tried to kill him. And why did I try? Because I felt like I need to do anything. I need to do something. It was a totally dumb mistake, you know. And everyone who, and if I would have, and I knew, you know, I'm a very reflective person. I knew at that point in time when I was sitting there, and it took like 30 minutes to do that. I knew that this is a mistake. I knew it, that this is the mistake, but I already had emotionally a little bit like cancel out with Medivir. I did finish the update back then. We had the teaser running. Everything was basically done. And it's like, yeah, I was like, I need to do this. This was like the thought behind it. And this is like one of the stuff which is really like where people can blame me about. Like obviously, you know, I abused the position, if you want to say it that way. Yes, I did. It's like, you know, it's really straightforward, and I don't, there's no need why I should not admit it at this point in time. But what I'm really confident about is go to all these players who were originally in these war teams, like in real war teams, not in like some war team, like in real war teams, and like really in this ventrilo, ask them if I was ever in their ventrilo on the Polish or on the other side, spying on whatever. I never was. I was never. I was never in their ventrilo helping them at any point in time, and I was not doing this as a character on one side or the other. I was doing this as a similar action as the heroes on the T-Sport. I wanted to help the community to stop, to free it from these idiots who are like suppressing it. or back then my opinion was that they are suppressing it and that they are idiots. Okay, and I need to act. So yeah, that that's like the deal behind this story. But again, go ask all the people who are really like the war leaders. They I was not in the war at all at any point in time, you know. And people who claim that they're just liars in that sense, and they really are, because I would have never gone that far on spying or whatever, because that's not my style. And because when I do things, I'm committed to them, and I was committed to make things right and make things good, and I was never committed to the idea to damage Medivir, and something like that would have damaged Medivir definitely, and I would have never gone that risk. Using another character to die to kill someone with the CM share, not a good idea either. But you know, I did that alone, and I did that on my own, and yeah, people make mistakes.
So there is a statement by Sandro McGregor. You mentioned his name before, and he said, "Quote: He bought and owned several war characters during his era as game master, and he was an active war player in both teams. He also had several rune farms, active selling runes to both parties for real war cash. Is it lies or is it true? To some extent."
So yeah, let's put it this way. Elvis, as I said before, was real. Elvis is Skywalker. Elvis was one of like my really, really point of contact on Medivir for a long time, and I really did a lot for that person. I really did. I mean, like that person, like before I was CM. I mean, like I he was like so many others who are playing Medivir, and that was a little bit shocking to me. Like having personal issues, like really being somehow a fucked up person. And yeah, Elvis was a fucked up person to a certain extent, and but I was friend with him to the extent how you can be friend with someone you chat and talk occasionally. And yeah, I mean, like what I don't understand quite until this point in time still is same story about Yoke. Like Yoker, like the guy who I helped the most. They both started to at some point to act really strange towards me, and like the point when I got CM, I still they very well that I was messaging Elvis from the CM account, and I said, "Hey Elvis," and he was like, he got that it was me. I don't know, like 5 minutes after we talked or after I managed him. But he was just so strange. I think he was a little bit. I don't know why. I can't tell you. He was frustrated about like maybe the fact that he didn't got the CM position, or that I won't be able to talk to him anymore or play with him. I don't know, because again, I didn't play. I was just there and talking all the time. I was never playing actively. The guild hunt with McGregors was the most longest hunt in my entire life, and so point taken. Yeah, he was hurt or something, and I don't know why. But the point is that he's very he I don't know why he says that actually, because he's no reason to say it, and on the other hand, it's a lie. Because the real truth is that I never had a room farm myself ever in the entire story of Tibianic or Medivir. What I did is, and now that I'm 5, 6 years older than back then these days, I can tell you that I was definitely a pretender to a certain extent, because I wanted to be famous on the server, and I wanted, as I said, McGregor's times before, I wanted to make McGregor's big, and I wanted to be the guy who has the stuff. So what I did is I asked my original team from McGregor's the Polish people, Pavel, Wojtek, Mateusz, Patrick, these people, and they were like back in these days, they were a little bit younger than me, and they had they were still in their educational phase, so they didn't have a lot of money. So what they did, they were just like, as I mentioned before, having 30, 40 MC shares all over the place and getting runes. And that was before I was CM, okay? And that was basically they were getting runes, sending it to me because I wanted to buy them, but I didn't use them myself because I'm not a hunting person. I just sold them. And why did I do that? Because I wanted to be the person. And that you might think that, or people might think that, oh my god, how is that person like thinking, But that's simply the truth. I wanted to be in in the loop, in the importance phase, whatever you want to call it. Like I wanted, like Dominic needs some SDs. Who is he going to message? He's going to message me because he knows I got SDs, and he thinks I make them myself. But honestly, before I started doing any work from Medivir, I didn't have any idea about scripts or whatsoever. I couldn't even program a simple JavaScript to have logins for the farms or something. I don't, and I didn't have the time because I was just, really bored player. As I said, the most extent to what it got to me ever was like, yeah, hunting polar bears, and that's all I can do. I can't do more. Just like handling one client open, like actively. I can't make runes or something. It's not in my. I don't spend my life like that. That's not me. And yeah, so they pretend something, and they pretend to know something that they don't even know. Elvis, after the second war, which we lost on McGregors against Midsummer, not shortly, but before I became CM, we lost against Midsummer Dominic's team, on the Polish side where we was. And when we lost that war, and I basically, a few months later, became CM. I think we lost in February. I became CM in July. Um, it was like Elvis was never again, actually, to my best knowledge, in any kind of involvement of war in a real war team, because he was always like this dickhead. He was like a real dickhead. He became a really strange person. And like, maybe he was that from the beginning, but he definitely was not in any war ventrilo where I was as a CM, because I wasn't there. And like, it's up to you to believe that or not, but he didn't have the insights to actually say that. And he I think he said that in the end, and I don't know why he said that, but I think he said that to hurt me, or something. And yeah, I'm not sure why people actually make these mistakes or have these flaws, but it's a learn to do, and you learn from Medivir. And I learned a lot from Medivir. I learned a lot from Tibia, and I learned a lot from Medivir not to trust people. And there's only a few people I actually know that I can trust, and that's basically the old Polish team, and that's obviously Iryont, and that's it. Like, that's no more people you don't know need from the internet, because internet is like a fucked up place to know people for real. And yeah, especially when you want to count on someone. But again, I never shared any insides of anything with them, and I never even shared my CM work, or what I do, or what I work on, with these kind of people. I just had a regular chat about their life. And Elvis was singing usually on Ventrilo when I was still CM, not CM, but leader of McGregors. Like, I was on the Ventrilo, he was singing, like, that kind of person he is. And I don't know why people are turning that mad and telling stories about they don't even have a proof. Because ask for any character that I would have on my wood server, or war character, please do so, because he won't be able to tell, because there's nothing to tell, because he yeah, that's simply about it.
So I was wondering, what was the Iryont reaction after the Peninsula sneak, after it became known to the community?
Hmm. um I think, mm, I tried to touch on this a little bit earlier already, that the relationship between Aaron and me was built on mutual trust, or is it's an active relationship, is built on mutual trust, and it's built on honest behavior. And yeah, I mean, like, it's pretty straightforward, you know? When you have a friend who's asking you something, did you do that? There's a lot of stuff you can say, but the only thing you can or should say is the truth. And I did share the truth, and because there's nothing to hide, you know. Why should I lie? Uh, and his reaction was like, yeah, he was disappointed, and that was worst moments in my life because I didn't want to disappoint him as a friend, and that was like, it was not fair towards Medivir that I did that. And when I thought about it in a later phase, I felt like, why did you do that? You know, it was so senseless, and yet it is senseless. So the final uh, stage was that we both agreed, and it's not like people imagine, oh my god, Doyle was fired. No, we both agreed that it's not good for the community if I stay as a community manager. And if I stay as an official member of the adminship, fine. And as we're businessmen, we should like learn from our stuff, and we should always uh, think that for the project and the project itself, and that's all I can say towards this.
So do you think the community reaction to the sneak didn't influence his decision to let's say again kick you, your mutual agreement that you shouldn't be a part of the team anymore?
Well, if you analyze the how you call it, the community reaction in very detail, you will find out that there's exactly about 4 to 5 people posting from multiple characters over multiple channels all the time the same bullshit. It's not like it's a little like it's not like the part about like fake news, because it's not fake news, but it's like the belief that when you say something from more than one character all the time, again, and again and again, you will true than it actually is. And I think this tactic is very popular among the trolls on and the haters of me, that they really, I mean, like, most of the people, when people flame me on forum, they usually do it nowadays on even noob shares, you know. I don't even understand that, why they don't even show their real face. Maybe they don't even have a real share anymore. uh and yes, of course, every one of us is influenceable by the reaction, the individual reactions of the players. And I know that Aaron was afraid of like a boomerang effect on the entire community, of course. But that doesn't mean that, like, this is something you always risk as an admin. Like, you always risk that there's a benefit of having people, and there's always a risk on having employees. And as a business owner, I can tell you that you need people. You always need people, and people will make mistakes. So it's like, it's your decision on whether you want to like keep them or not. And we both, but it was not like I didn't agree to it. I wanted to leave. I told you earlier. It was a really bad thing to leave this way, and I didn't want to leave this way, and it put me in a bad light, which I didn't want to stand at. And I don't think that I personally, okay, this is a personal opinion, but I don't think that I would have deserved that kind of behavior from people and that of kind of reaction. But be it the way it is, I don't do it for the thanks, or I don't do it for the grad UA the gratefulness of all the people. They can think of me what they want to think of. I'm sure that what in the end the overall input was positive, and yeah.
There is this story that once you were approached by Louis Henderson, and he asked you for the IP of player named Ardex. And the question is, have you ever gave away anybody's IP to a player, or have you ever checked like subcars and revealed them to a player, or for example, confirmed that such and such character wasn't or was a subcar or some person in question?
Yeah, it's again a little bit of a tricky one. In all honest, I mean, like, if I was a listener, or if I actually ever would have listeners who got that far to the interview, because it's time we already do it.
Yeah.
Uh, I think, like, I don't know if I would believe myself or not, but I can tell you from my heart that I actually did that only one time, and I really regret it. And I did tell Ardex that a couple of times in person, that I really regret that, of having done that. It was a really dumb mistake, but it was one of these mistakes, one of these stupid favors you do to friends. Yeah, let's say friends in brackets, because you think that these friends or people expect it, that you do it because of loyalty towards them or whatsoever. But I learned, but this is a later phase and later learning I had to make. True loyalty from Lower Henderson in that case would have been not even to ask me for such a favor, because this kind of favor puts me into a situation where I only can make mistakes, and where I only can, like, be like the idiot in the end. And yeah, it was a really stupid mistake, and I think um, I I definitely did my learning from that, and I know as well that that was like the very first big shit which came up, and I felt really bad for it, because I it was like I should never have done that, and I don't even can recall today why I actually did it. I think I maybe it had something to do with the entire setup of sometimes how like I approached as well the thing about the, like, selling runes, etc., to be in the middle. Like, I don't know, maybe to prove Lower Henderson a point about, like, that I'm his friend, and I want to help him in this situation out. And let's face it, I think I told him whether Ardex or not was having a subshare or not. Like, it was not, so it was not the most biggest deal of all times, but it was still like a very stupid mistake. And again, the second stupid mistake is always like to in the first place not admit it, and I should have done that, but I was afraid of not being able to finish the update clashes of races, and like losing the position, and like putting actually shit on Medivir. That was like one of the real main drivers, and this is why I rejected to accept that I did that in the first place. But I think later on I did admit it to Ardex, and I hope that he yeah, I mean, like, I just hope that I really learned from that, and I did, I think.
So did you ever, besides Peninsula Sneak, use your CM car to help yourself or other player in a way a community manager shouldn't? Besides the things you already said.
I'm thinking about it, and yeah, as I said, there were like the the real bad part is that these four parts which we already touched on, is like Ardex giving the IP away, or matching the IP. So I don't even know if I get IP. I can't recall what I did that, but I'm sure someone will be gladly to find that out for me when I did in in the exact manner. So this and the peninsula favoring like giving these small favors for some McGregors, that was not a smart move as well, but it wasn't that damageful in my opinion. Yeah, and then I fucked up once a quest where you could, not a quest, but the loot of a monster where you could loot a whole instead of gold. And then
Sorry to interrupt you, but can you repeat like last 30 seconds? It just
no worries.
connection went down a bit.
So what I said is that I had four things which I really regretted on place. That was the Ardex in case with the IP. Secondly was the Peninsula case. And the third case was then when I basically favored a certain group of people among the others, like with the McGregors, giving them a little bit of manner. I mean, like it was not really a lot, but I shouldn't have done that, you know. I mean, like, or I don't know, I just shouldn't have done that. Simple as that. There's no discussion about it. And then finally, I once fucked up the loot of a monster. I don't even know which. Can't recall at the moment, but I fucked up the loot, and I think it was some Daraman hunter or something like a slave hunter. I don't know. Maybe and they dropped basically a holy scarab instead of platinum coins, and that was really stupid because we had some issue there with obviously more than holy scarabs than we should have in game, and it was really hard to argue for the community. But this such things happen, but it's not really an abuse. But yeah, that was like a real bug, which was definitely introduced by me. I don't basically count the hero stuff to my most biggest mistakes, not at all.
One of the funniest mistakes for sure.
Yeah, and I in all honest, maybe I do it again, and yeah, I can't recall a situation, and yeah, you know, it might sound really stupid when I say, well, yeah, these are the things I found out about, and I can't recall anything else. I can't recall anything else where I really did something which I think myself is corrupted in a sense that I shouldn't have done. You know, because what I was trying to say early in the interview is that I'm really committed and I really believe in the project, and I didn't want to risk it at some point in time for whatever stupid action I could do. And doing a couple of stupid actions in 2 years' time is eventually a reasonable amount of time, the amount of stupid actions. Maybe, I don't know.
Do you think there was a player in community that could replace you in a community manager position back in the day? Like some tutor or player you trust would do a good job?
No. So, see, the good or the part, the line.
Sorry, couldn't hear you answer at all.
Okay, sorry. What I said is that I don't think that in any point in time there was another player that could replace it, because the player base is not a good source to actually get new talents from. I mean, like, especially not in that powerful situation, because as I said, you will turn up or turn out to be like Muir McGregor or the Lightbringer story. I don't know if you ever were into it. Like,
yeah, but I know the corruption of the power.
Yeah, and you are getting corrupted by the power, and you by the will to actually do good, and that happened to me, and I think that will can happen to many people, and I think it happens ultimately to all people. It's like by the will either to do good, you become corrupted, or by the will, but by the fear to lose your power, you become corrupted. It's like people are doing mistakes, and people are not from the community is not a good idea. So this is why McGregor is the best choice for community manager, is someone who is like not into the community, not willing to be in the community, like someone from the outside, an external who's paid, who's doing a job, and that's it.
How did you feel about your end? Like it didn't end as you planned, obviously, as we learned. Uh, what was the feeling? Like were you mad, angry, or betrayed by community? Uh, how was it for you in this very day that you got cut?
Okay, and this very day we got cut because it was very emotional. But it was not. I got, as I said, it wasn't cut, but we made the decision, and it was
Yeah,
very. But um, and I had times in my life where I was wishing back the point in time where I was able to like influence Medivir, because like in the game development part, because I really think because my head is when you know put me as in a mad person or not, but when sometimes like it's like I have a game development company, and whenever I'm like thinking, like I usually when I go to bed, I think about like some kind of story. I just make it up. I just tell myself a story, you know. And sometimes it's like if I tell my story about like Thais, okay, and it usually happens like that. There's like some raid on Thais, and I imagine like what kind of guilds, like I just make up guilds, you know, and I can make up the population and how could the server look like, and it's like I really think a lot about like this kind of location, like this nostalgic feeling that I have about this game, and the way I would want to change it, or the way I would want to see it changed. But there's two constraints here, and when we go back to reality, these two constraints are important. First one is I'm not the admin, and it's not my game; it's Arndt's game, and that's important to point out because I, I, I it's you know these kind of dreams I have, they're contradicting to the current game plan. That's okay, you know. But it's not for Medivir, you know. It's maybe for another project, but not for Medivir. These kind of ideas. Uh, but again, what I really miss is hosting events and making events. That's something I really badly miss sometimes, and it's like it bugs me, you know, because damn, I'm really good at that, I think, and I'm really like I it was not only entertaining for the players, it was really entertaining for me, and I remember times when I was like coming back from work at like 3 a.m. in the morning when I was still working as a waiter, or like coming home a little bit drunk or whatever, getting online, just like cheering up the people, like doing something fancy, like something like I didn't plan these events. I never planned an event. I only planned this one big event where we had on their TBN where you went into the teleporter and even made the map for it. You know,
yeah, I remember this one. It was fun.
it was really fun, but I mean, like we had so many monsters that the clients crashed from the people, and we had
Yeah,
so many
yeah,
people.
yeah.
It was really fun because we found out that day actually that there was a client limit of monsters you can have on the screen, you know. So and players, but we were like 700 monsters and players on the screen, and I may think the limit was like 150. So the graphic stuff always collapsed for a lot of people.
Yeah,
But it was
I got crushed as well.
yeah, but you know, apart from this event, I never planned an event. I just I log in, and similar to the stories which I tell to myself before I go to sleep, I just do it. You know, it just floats, and this kind of stuff helped me to evolve like stories which I finally implement in some other game maybe, or just do it. You know, I and that's really what I miss. I think sometimes that it would be good to have something like this for Medivir, but I know that it won't be me, and I know that it's you need to be a very you need to actually like want to do that, and you like an ad hoc person, and not to have to invest a lot of time into this. As I said, I never invested time into this. I just did, and I just like something just happened and evolved, and I just let it flew. And I know that not a lot of, or not many people are working like that. They want to plan more or whatever. And this would require more preparation. Therefore, events are more tricky, etc., etc. And yeah, that's so. In the end, I can tell you, I was sad about it. And I think like everyone who's like realistic to the involvement of the server knows that this entire event was not good for the server in the sense that it put a lot of damage what I did to the server, and it threw back the server like a year in terms of updates, because there was actually a finished update ready in the pipe to be released, and it was not released. It was even fully basically tested, or at least 80%. So it was like really bad, and that's sometimes I cry a little bit about the put in work for the new update, which was never released, because I think that was my final masterpiece for Medivir. And yeah, because the first update was just like a little bit newbie stuff in that sense, and the second update, the foreign land, I just tried to create land with only custom sprites. That was my most important part here, and this foreign lands is like one big piece of map which I only did alone. But I know that I just wanted to use and create a map with custom sprites, and that's actually what I achieved. But yeah, it has nothing to do with the clash of races in general.
So after you agreed with Iryont to take you out of the team, of the CM position, did you left the team completely, or were you still around for some time, like helping behind the scenes or whatever?
Well, I think literally I was around in terms of being present on the to just to the system in that sense. I didn't have
sorry,
any
sorry,
powers,
but
like,
how? I have to ask you to repeat like last 10 seconds. Like you said, you were present, and then the voice cut.
Oh, okay. You can hear me now?
Yeah,
Better?
perfectly now.
Okay, yeah. So I said that I was still present, literally. I mean, like literally present in terms of being online for a couple of months still, and I was like giving some feedback to something, but it faded out pretty quickly, and then I think people cried again about Doyle being online as a character on a level 11 druid, and then they deleted even that one. And yeah, I mean, like today I don't have any role, and I didn't had any role after me leaving the community manager position in the administration, because as I said before, we make decisions and we communicate stuff and we stick to our words. And I think Aaron made it pretty clear that, and I won't be part of the official team, and that's how it is. And apart from the events, I don't want to be at the moment as well, because I'm really busy on what I do, and I don't have any capacities to help out there. And I think like it's going into the right direction anyways.
Are there any topics or situations you would like to talk about that we didn't cover, or like do you feel a need to clarify anything else?
That's really a tough one, because I was thinking about like, is there anything I want to talk about or clarify? Most likely there will be, because there is always a thing, eventually when this is posted, some people will like flame me or whatever, and would want to clarify on them. But I don't think that there's a need to do so. Like in the end, you need to cut off with some topics, and you need to end with some topics, and to end the discussion about some topics. And I think I really try to be honest and like open to your questions, and that's just hope this is like enough truth and enough explanation for the people those people who don't want to listen anyway, they will not listen even to whatever I want to say and whatever I want to touch on. The last part, which we didn't talk about, is how players can actually actively change their
So,
environment.
Miles,
Yes,
I'm very sorry, but the voice is going down a bit again, like the
okay,
connection
no
problem a bit.
worries. Okay, no
It
worries.
sounds good now. Just keep going.
Uh, so what I said is that I want to touch on the last part is like an open part on how the community actually can change their gameplay and their experience there. I got CM and I was just a normal player. Okay, not a normal player. I was hunting polar bears.
Yeah, that's far from normal, but I get the point.
the so I was part of the community and I decided to help it to evolve it. And I'm not saying that someone else from the community will be a community manager again, but if you want to evolve the game, don't think by paying you will just have it done. It's not working like that. What you need to do is you need to actively like try to change stuff and like if you want to change stuff. And I did run several Facebook campaigns, and I still plan eventually like to promote Medivir on whatever way I can when I find a nice spot to promote it, you know. And if you're working in a marketing company or whatever, you can try to promote that project if you want to, you know. And there's always capacity on how you can change the community, etc. And don't expect always others to change it. And that's a point which I really want to try point out, because hands-on mentality means that you are the one who's making the active change, and don't rely on necessarily on others to do that, because as as we all know, admins are limited in their capacity, limited in their time, and especially when we talk about evolving the servers, making it to a better place, etc., hosting events, that's all can be done by players as well. Surely not summoning any monsters, but you can make like football events or whatsoever, and group hunts. That's all up to you, and you need to really embrace that.
So, to wrap it up, how would you summarize your career? Like, would you say you were good or bad overall, more good or more bad? And would you say Medivia would grow the same way, or were you necessary to its grow? Like, it wouldn't be the same without you being part of its history.
Okay, that will open a lot of criticism now what I'm going to say. Yeah, but um or it will open a lot of room for criticism. But I personally believe that what I did for Medivir is unique in a sense that no one else would have done that. And I did embrace the mind change on the community and on our side, that there's a really need to evolve the game, to make it more unique, more custom, to make it a standalone game. And I think, again, very, very personal, very, very subjective opinion, but I believe that there is a risk if I didn't commit that much into the game, that the game wouldn't exist to this point in time anymore, because I know that there was a time when we had so few people online that there was a real thought about closing the game, and this happily never happened. And I don't claim a share of that. It's all credits to Iryont, and I would never doubt that. But my part of the history is definitely that change only comes by you pushing it. And in this case, I did make the start, and now it's time for others to push the change, and it's time for others to be in the spotlight.
Can you remind me how many years was it since you left the team?
Uh, Good question. Um, I personally don't know anymore. I think 2015 maybe. So I got CM 2013. Might be wrong, but I'm 15. So it was like 2 years really being actively involved as a CM, then like half a year before and after, like still working there, and that's it. So it's like, uh, yeah, it's at least 2.5 years that I'm not anymore in the team,
So
or
the
two.
question is like the few final questions, because it's been a long time since it all ended for you, but after all this time you still like log in from time to time. I don't know, probably to chat with some people, or take a look at the forum, and basically we can still find you around somehow after all this time. And I was wondering, like, why is that? Was it like a really special project that the Medivia?
Yeah, I mean, like I hope it got through the interview that it is was a special project for me, and that I really loved the time working on it. And it's not any project like any other. It was like, and as well, working with Iryont is like a very tedious thing, but it's a great thing, and it's a great thing to have him and his technical experience with so much stuff and the exchange here to say, yeah. And yeah, you can still find me around. That's a really hard one because it's really hard to find me around, to be honest, because I'm only logging in when I'm at work. I didn't even log in into the last 2 years, like at times, except nowadays. And even today, today we are doing this interview from a hotel room because I'm at work, spending the night in some other town. So because if I would be home, I wouldn't be like like doing this interview review at this time. So I mean, like, it's really hard to catch me, and I think the reason for me to still log in and to still like see, I tried sometimes I talk to people, but people have changed so much, and everyone I knew, I think I knew, retired, and like there's no one from the original people I felt committed to, or I felt that this is Medieval for me, is like is still there. But I think the reason why I still log in is that there's still a glimmer of hope in 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 every login, that you will find something you had, and this is, I think, so many people who play Medieval have this in their heart, that you will find some kind of experience magically coming around. You're chasing it because it haunts you, that nostalgic feeling of like being a child, like playing this game, being just like free to do whatever you want to, like enjoying these unique moments, which I think like is really Sipsoft. The only thing they really did is that they created these great moments because of their sandbox game. And Medivir is like a place where you can try to strive for it, but I don't think that most people find it. I found it a couple of times again on Medivir with McGregors, with basically hunting polar bears, but it's not like you really have it. It's not the same feeling, but you chase it and you want to have it again. It's like with a drug. You want to get the feeling again, but you will never get the same feeling again. But it will be different. It will be eventually good, but not the original feeling you're chasing at. But yeah, I don't do anything when I'm locking in. I basically just like stand.
It it cut the sound again, I guess. Hello, Miles. Hello. I cannot hear you at all completely. Hello? Hello?
Yeah, man, I had such an emotionally talk. Crashed fucking Discord.
I'm like, what the fuck? What happened?
When did you lose me?
Like 2 minutes ago,
Did
it's
I already mention the nostalgic feeling of the players?
yes, like you look in from time to time, like you wanna you hope for the feeling that we cannot get anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's basically like, yeah. And when I basically log in nowadays, it's like I just sometimes I just log. I don't even have any friends anymore. Like friends is the wrong word. I don't have any people to talk to anymore in game. There's no one left. Whoever I played with, everyone is gone. And so the only reason for me then to come online is to just see the the screen, the graphic. It's like when you have smoked and you stop smoking, and whenever someone walks by and he smokes, and you just breathe in the smoke. You don't smoke anymore yourself, but you breathe in the smoke to, oh yeah, that's that's how it felt. And that's exactly how I feel about like Medivir. Sometimes and it helps me as well to get like my head straight when I'm working on other or my own project, that I I get my head straight about, yeah, that this is the past and it's a good part. I learned so much from it, and it's great to have it, and it will always be attached to my life, and it will always be a part of my life, and I don't know, I think I will always log in to the game to smell again the taste of the cigarette.
yeah, that's very poetic. Well, I can relate to that for sure. So, almost the final question: what did you do after Medivia? After it all went silent, the game, and you when you moved on, like what did you do next? What was your next project?
uh Drinking a lot of beer.
Okay, that's a good one.
I think like the real answer is this. I have my own company. I'm developing as well something, and yeah, I have own targets, and I always wanted to do that. Like I always wanted to become that person, and I only was able to become that person with someone as Iryont as a teacher, or whatever you want to call it. And I think that that's my life turned after Medivir, not in a bad way or whatever. I didn't fall into whatever dark hole or something, not at all. I i have i have so much to do these days that I really sometimes have a hard time finding any any spot to actually like enjoy myself, or like play a game or whatever, because there's a lot of stuff to do, there's a lot of new stuff to do, and it's great. And uh so I finished my studies, I'm working, I'm marrying, I'm like there's so much stuff going on in life, that and it's good that Medivir ended at that part, definitely, because it took so much time and so much effort and hard blood. But yeah, I mean, like, maybe uh, we will I will have a which is which is nice to play as well. And then yeah, I would love to obviously get your feedback.
Yeah, of course. I mean, okay, so the best question you were waiting for, your favorite memory from Medivia, just one. You can pick just one.
Oh man, that's so mad. You know, I wrote two. Okay. My best memory. Okay, it might really sound crazy, yeah? But I think I had one day when I was playing on Namos on Folder, and that's basically, it's not even the one day, it's just this feeling like being on Folder, having like this, like a fire field there, no one else, like not even people being online right now to chat, you know, like all the busy stuff is gone. It's like 3 a.m. in the morning, you're just sitting there in front of your computer, and it's just like, it's calm, it's night in Medivir, and you have like you're on that island, which is so much forsaken from all the players. People just don't value that island. It's just like a forsaken piece of electronic bytes. And that that lightning effect with the fire and these beers, you know, which you hunt every 5 minutes or whatsoever. I don't count it because I didn't go by timing. It's just like standing there, watching the screen, seeing the time passes a little bit, and that's it's a nice moment where I really love to remember, and it's a calm moment where I feel like it settled me down, and it gave me the feeling that I really like, you know, I was already spending nights outside in my life on the campfire, and the truth is, in reality, stuff is never as nice as you imagine it. But on Medivir, it was nice because it's not cold, you know. In real, it's cold. It's fucking. You have a lot of buzz stuff around you. It sucks. But when you do it on Medivir, it's not cold. It's just like you're in a comfort zone. It's nice, and it's a really nice moment.
What was the second one you written down?
That was that was actually Vinod Dragon Lair defense when totally outnumbered, like 5 McGregors against the entire server, and they were coming. And there's actually a YouTube video, but this is the YouTube video of the one before the second one, and the second one is just like, yeah, being there and like being ready, like, you know, you're totally outnumbered. You have no chance to win, and you're not. The cause is not to win. It's not the course. The course is to fight and to stand ground and eventually to do something which no one else has done, like to kill Mullen, for example, who was like the highest level back in that time, 111 knight, and he nearly died that day. He had like to waste 6 stone skin amulets because we had a strong combo actually. And yeah, that these kind of stuff, you know, like to be there with friends, not with these warheads, but like with people you like. And it's not about like, oh, we cheat to win or something. Yeah, of course we cheated to hold fucking BBL defense, but we didn't cheat to get like, I don't know, like pot bombs or whatever what later one was used. But we wanted to have a fair fight, and we did had a fair fight. And I think like that's what so many people totally misunderstand. It's not about winning or whatever, it's about the experience. And that's what's really what I really loved about it.
Any final message you would like to say to the people, perhaps to the community, or say hello to someone?
Yeah, big message of the day. Yeah, life is short, guys. So I think like what I want to point out is that life is short, and when you want to do something and you have something in your head, then do it, and don't let people tell you cannot do it, or tell your family you cannot do it, or whatsoever. Just do it, because my experience is things which are like, and that's so polemic in that sense, but it's true. Like things appear to be unrealistic, undoable. I'm doing a game without any computational experience in my head, but I can do it. I just need to work on it, and I just need to hire the right people, etc. And you can do things, you can make things, but just committing yourself to it, and yeah, you can do more than you actually think you can. And yeah, that's it.
So that's it. That's the interview. Okay, so I just have to say the final message to you. I'm very glad that you found the time to
Yeah,
talk.
and it took so much time. Oh my god.
It took 3 hours. Yeah, it's so much, but I'm glad you went into such a details. And yeah, well, thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm thanking you as well. In all honesty, because it was so much great. I was looking so much in forward to this, because it's nice to have to be able to talk about it and to have someone who you think like, yeah, you're interested in it, and I like, like you have in most parts like similar feelings about the game, and like, it's like something you don't necessarily share on a daily basis. And